economy get back onto its feet after weeks of lockdown measures, but Modi is facing mounting criticism for his pain inflicted on India's poor during this time. And China's reimposing a lockdown on a northeastern city after warning of a huge risk the coronavirus could spread. Jilin City reported 6 new cases of COVID-19 today. Residents will now only be allowed to leave the northeastern city after testing negative for the virus and completing self-isolation. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Roger.
Thanks so much indeed, Leanne. And 15 minutes into the European opening, it's red across the screen on the stocks. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Take the Bond Challenge. Use the free Interactive Brokers Bond Scanner to search their deep availability of U.S. government securities, 38,000 global corporate bonds, and 850,000 municipals. IBKR passes through the highest of all bids and lowest of all offers received at the electronic venues it accesses. We do not widen spreads, apply hidden fees, or mark up quotes. How many basis points does your current broker keep? Find out at ibkr.com/bonds.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Guy Johnson.
Joining us now is Gary Kelly, Southwest Airlines CEO. Gary Kelly, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Gary, over the last few days, we've seen pictures on social media of packed aeroplanes flying around the United States. What is your sense of how quickly demand for aviation is going to return in the U.S.?
Well, the demand is still very, very modest. We're seeing very gradual improvements in air traffic. Our load factor last week was probably around 20% at best. So there are, at least on Southwest, we're not booking our airplanes full anyway to allow for physical distancing on the airplane. So you won't see a full airplane. But the good news is we are beginning to see a recovery. That our government has asked us to remain open for business throughout. So we've never shut down, but we have reduced a lot of our flights. And we're working with the government to hopefully implement temperature screenings so that we don't have ill passengers getting into the airport and onto airplanes.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Now, we are looking at a down day in European trading. The FTSE slipping 1%, the Stoxx 600 down 1.3%, and the DAX down 1.7% in Frankfurt. At the same time, US futures are actually slightly in the green. It comes after a mixed trading day in Asia, where the Hang Seng is currently fairly flat. We did see Japanese equities closing lower, but Chinese equities closing higher this morning. Now, in currencies, I'm keeping a particular eye on sterling this morning. It's at 122. It was enjoying a bit of a bid straight after that UK GDP number came out. We have fallen into recession in the first quarter, but the number was better than expected, and so we are seeing sterling slightly bid, currently up 0.2% at the moment. Otherwise, it's all about the Kiwi dollar falling 1% against the greenback. It is the big laggard amongst G10 currencies after the RBNZ doubled its asset purchase program and said it could cut rates even further, even into negative territory. On the other hand, we are seeing the Bloomberg dollar spot index unchanged, the yen holding at 107.1, and the euro at 108 this morning. Bitcoin, meanwhile, up 0.8% at $8,899. In the bond markets, 10-year Treasury yields holding at 66 basis points. 10-year bund yields sliding 3 basis points to negative 53. We are seeing 10-year gilt yields lower at 22 basis points this morning. Finally, in the commodity markets, we are seeing gold fairly steady at $1,703 a troy ounce. WTI sliding 1% to $25 a barrel. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Lynn Garrins with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. Brazil has reported a new record for coronavirus deaths. That's as Latin America's largest economy becomes the new global hotspot. The country reported 881 deaths yesterday, pushing the total to 12,400. Last week, the country exceeded the UK's daily death toll. The pharmaceutical maker Gilead is licensing its potential coronavirus treatment, remdesivir, to 5 generic drug manufacturers in India and Pakistan. This measure should help speed supply chain development to meet anticipated demand. The companies will be able to produce the drug without paying Gilead royalties. That's until the World Health Organization declares the end of the pandemic, or until another drug or vaccine is indeed improved. And finally, as Naira mentioned earlier, here in the UK, the government has set out plans to reopen England's housing market as the coronavirus lockdown begins to ease. From today, estate agents can open, viewings can be carried out, and removal firms can restart operations. It's estimated there are 450,000 buyers and renters with plans on hold. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Yeah, Leanne, I mean, we've all had a discussion offline about whether it's a good time to buy in the UK right now, but about whether it's good to buy or not relating to the market. It's more a question as well of whether people will actually want to put themselves in that close contact with others, I suppose.
This is a big question, really. Do you want to move house at this time and have removal vans moving all your furniture? But I think some people really want to, and as we did discuss offline, the housing market is probably looking a little bit nice right now because obviously we're not in the great position due to the lockdown. So let's see what happens. I'm looking for a new housemate, actually.
Okay.
I am. Well, I'm just putting that out there.
It might be a good opportunity, but only if you've got the money.
Indeed.
Now, speaking of that, the UK economy shrank almost 6% in March, plunging into what may be its deepest recession in more than 3 centuries. The slump meant GDP fell 2% in the first quarter as coronavirus restrictions hit the economy. Adding to that, Bloomberg Economics suggests economic output could drop a further 17% in the second quarter. For more, let's bring in Bloomberg's UK economy reporter, Lucy Mckenna. Lucy, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining. So take us through the details of the report, because it really looked like the hit was broad-based across the economy.
Yeah, I know. Yes, it really was. It's actually quite stunning how broad-based it was, given we only really had a week of lockdown within this period. So, I mean, if you push that forward to the next quarter, the quarter we're currently in, that's a worrying sign. But yes, so today, we've shrunk almost 6% in March, which is when we first had these restrictions appearing in the UK economy. It's been, as I say, very broad-based, but huge amounts of damage to the services industry. And that's important because you've got to remember that services make up 80% of the UK economy. So huge dents there. Travel and tourism down by about 50%. accommodation down by 46%, air transport down by 44%. And, at the start of March, I think most of us are operating pretty normally in the UK. So it's a worrying sign.
Yeah, no, it is interesting you mentioned that because, of course, as you say, it only takes in a very small part of the lockdown which we've been experiencing. But, I mean, going on, looking further forward, I know we're predicting a further 17% drop in the second quarter, but with the gradual easing that we're talking about, at least in England, if not in Wales, Scotland and Ireland, is that likely, do you think, to make much difference going forward? Is there a sign, as some, I think the British Chambers of Commerce was saying, that many businesses could get back up and running relatively quickly?
I think there is some level of hope, but I'm a little bit shocked looking at this data and realising how much of a difference a week has made to the March data. So when you consider that many firms won't be able to reopen even if they want to at this moment in time. They might not be able to get workers in because workers might be quarantining or workers might be ill or in, groups that are at risk. Or they may not be able to put in social distancing measures to make it safe enough. Plus, people may not be willing to go to the shops or to move house, as you just mentioned. So it's hard to say that this is going to suddenly bounce back. I think this is going to be going on for a long time.
So where does that leave the Bank of England, Lucy? Deputy Governor Ben Broadbent has said they may need to ease monetary policy further. Is that going to come soon?
I think so, yes. We've got a June meeting coming up. We didn't see anything at the last meeting last week, but June is coming up, and currently the Bank of England's QE programme is due to run out towards the end of June. So if they want to top that up, the June meeting would be the obvious time to do it. Two policymakers were already voting for that at the last meeting. So I think that seems pretty well locked in. Everyone's expecting it, and nobody's really talking it down. Okay. I wouldn't see much action on rates.
All right, Lucy, thank you so much for being with us. That was Bloomberg's UK economy reporter, Lucy Mckenna, giving us a sense of where this is going.
Yeah. We've talked about the pound rising slightly after that data. Perhaps it was priced in. The stock 600 extending losses down 1.2%. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Every way they looked, investors saw danger in reopening the economy too soon. Dr. Anthony Fauci told a Senate panel there could be more deaths and a setback to economic recovery. But a Federal Reserve official says not to reopen the economy could mean mass bankruptcies and depression. So the stock averages start the day after a drop of 2%. More bonuses for Walmart workers, $300 for full-time hourly associates and $150 for part-timers. Workers, including assistant managers at all Walmart facilities and its supply chain, will be eligible. This will cost Walmart about $400 million. Summer vacation plans this year may see a lot of us hit the road. A survey from Gas Buddy says 31% of the more than 1,800 people asked say they do plan to take a summer road trip. Part of it's to take advantage of lower gas prices. The other part is to avoid flying. Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
When the market is unpredictable, BAM gives you certainty. In the face of volatility and illiquidity, BAM-insured municipal bonds deliver default protection, value preservation, and a durable AA rating from S&P. BAM's insurance protects against everything that causes a default, including natural disasters, financial fraud, pension issues, and economic disruption, like the one we're experiencing right now. BAM. Build America Mutual. Ask your broker about BAM-insured municipal bonds.
Elite Advisory Firm.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
The garden tools that mean you can grow your own. The fire pit that turns tea time into an alfresco dining experience. The paddling pool that turns your back garden into a water park. With a choice of ways to pay, you can make the most of family time. You can say yes when it matters most at very.co.uk. Goods and services provided by Shop Direct Home Shopping Limited. Credit provided. Subject to status by Shop Direct Finance Company Limited. 18 plus.
A half-price dream holiday, wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free, wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the USwitch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
8:30 a.m. in London, 9:30 if you're listening in Paris, Frankfurt or Brussels. Good morning, everyone. I'm Naira Chahich.
And I'm Roger Hearing, and you're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Roger, 30 minutes into the equity market open here in Europe, we're seeing quite a bit of caution. Yesterday, we closed slightly higher on the Stock 600. Today, we're down 1.4% right now on Europe's equity benchmark. Across regional benchmarks, the FTSE 100 down 1.2%. The CAC 40 and DAX both down around about 2%. The IBEX and FTSE MIB lower by 1.25 percentage point and 1.5% respectively. You wonder whether some of this is playing catch up to what happened in the US yesterday, where we saw the S&P 500 drop 2% and volatility spike, largely on the comments from Anthony Fauci about the risks of reopening the US too soon. So we did see that take a hit on US equities yesterday, but the S&P 500, Dow and NASDAQ futures stabilized throughout the Asian session. We've even seen them higher at some point, but they're coming off the highs now. Dow and NASDAQ futures flat and S&P futures actually edging into the red. Taking a look at the 10-year Treasury yield, down 2 basis points. So a little bit of risk off starting to creep into these markets now. 65 basis point on the 10-year Treasury yield. The 10-year bond yield down 3 basis points, negative 53. Following the UK GDP data, the 10-year gilt yield down 3 basis points to a 22 handle. Interestingly, though, we did see the pound actually move a little higher after that data showing a recession, with cable up 0.1% now, so coming off the highs, but still in the green, 122.74. Elsewhere in FX, very much the Kiwi in focus, still the underperformer in G10, down more than 1%. You have the Reserve Bank of New Zealand expanding asset purchases, but also talking about negative rates as an option. Money market pricing for 2021 shifting to factor in a negative cash rate. You've still got Fed officials pushing back on that negative rate in the US, despite the pricing for that in the front end. And then oil hit a 5-week high yesterday, softer today. WTI down 1.7%, $25.34 a barrel. Brent at $29.10, down 2.9%.
Right, let's go on to some of today's top stories. Now, an easing of the UK's lockdown begins today, with the Prime Minister calling it baby steps towards reopening the economy. In England, people will be able to spend unlimited time outdoors, and those who can't work from home are being encouraged to go to their jobs. Meanwhile, the government has extended its furlough scheme until at least October. Bloomberg Economics says the total cost could reach £84 billion. That says GDP figures out this morning showed the UK economy shrank almost 6% in March as the nation went into lockdown. It almost certainly puts the UK into a deep recession, potentially the deepest in more than 3 centuries.
In the US, President Trump's top disease expert has told Congress that reopening the US economy too soon threatens a new spike in coronavirus infections. An early reopening could set you back. That's what Anthony Fauci told the Senate Health Committee. He's concerned about cities and states relaxing infection curbs without meeting guidelines on when it might be safe.
Stan Druckenmiller says the prospect of a V-shaped recovery in the US is a fantasy, and the risk-reward calculation for equities is the worst he's seen in his lifetime. More from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
In a webcast held by the Economic Club of New York, the legendary hedge fund manager said stimulus programs are not building future growth, but rather are just giveaways to companies and business owners. The spread of the pandemic in the U.S. has brought the economy to a standstill, seized up credit markets, and led to the end of the longest-running bull market in history. His long-term track record, marking returns of about 30% a year over 3 decades, established him as one of the world's top money managers. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Yeah, Roger, it's worth noting that people really listen to what Stan Druckenmiller has to say. As Charlie Pellet said there, he's got a strong track record, and his remarks are among the strongest comments yet by a Wall Street heavyweight on the bleak outlook facing the US. He said the consensus out there seems to be, look, don't worry, the Fed has your back. But he said there's only one problem with that. Our analysis says it's not true. So he is bearish. That said, he is bullish on some things, long-short strategies, for example, but partly because I'm worried about everything else, which, isn't sort of necessarily the best comment to make about something you're bullish on. But then he's also bullish on Amazon.
Yeah, it is interesting listening to him and seeing where he puts his focus. But I also reflect that he's just, in a way, also echoing what Goldman Sachs was saying yesterday about the equity market being way out ahead of the facts in many ways and not really in tune.
Yeah, that was David Costin. The only thing I would say about that is he warned that we could see an 18% drawdown in the next 3 months, but then that the S&P 500 would rebound to 3,000 by year end. So that still sort of hints at maybe not V-shape, but it hints at a recovery of some sort. Whereas, of course, what Stan Druckenmiller is saying, the prospect of a V-shaped recovery in the US is a fantasy.
Well, let's go on to some corporate news then this morning. Now, California's Alameda County says Tesla can restart its operations as soon as next week if pandemic guidelines are followed. Now, that comes amid a tense standoff with the CEO Elon Musk, who said he'll get the plant back to work regardless of the rules, risking arrest. County officials say they've held productive discussions with the electric car maker.
And Earnings and Commerce Bank has put aside €479 million to deal with the fallout from the coronavirus crisis. It's joining peers in marking down assets and boosting reserves to deal with bad loans. The Frankfurt-based bank said that more than half of its €326 million in credit provisions were directly related to the outbreak.
CFO Bettina Orlop spoke to Bloomberg's Matt Miller, who began by asking about the lender's outlook.
On the valuation results, we are pretty confident that we will see a recovery, and we already seen that in the past weeks. So that's the one part of the story. The other one, we gave a guidance on the LLPs, which is clearly attributed to the Corona crisis, where we said that assuming a U-shaped scenario, we would see approximately 1 to 1.4 billion euros until year end, always assuming recovery on the one side, no second lockdown, which is important.
What are you expecting in terms of loans, Bettina? I mean, even if we have somewhat of a U-shaped recovery, there are bound to be a lot of bankruptcies or a lot of delinquencies at the very least. What's your expectation for this year due to the pandemic?
Well, I mean, we looked thoroughly in our portfolio. We have a very well-diversified portfolio. And as you said, yes, we will see hits. But we should not, first of all, forget that we have the benefit, and our corporates have the benefit to be in Germany. So we probably have the most comprehensive government program across the world, I would say. We will see hits, specifically the ones who had troubled business models beforehand are also now having increasingly problems. And that's why we forecast something around 1 to 1.4 billion, which clearly makes sure that this is more than we predicted at the beginning of the year, where we gave out a guidance on more than 650 million loan loss provisions. So it's quite an increase in comparison to our original guidance.
Absolutely. You'd already planned cost cuts. Of course, you've got a plan in operation right now. And last year you announced you're going to cut about 20% of the branch network. I wonder what your thinking is currently, as people, more people, even Germans, shockingly, are switching from cash to digitalization. A lot of people are doing their banking from home or remotely rather than going into branches. Do you see that plan being accelerated to reduce your widespread branches in Germany?
Well, you're absolutely right. We are definitely seeing a change of customer behavior at the moment. We had in March an all-time high with respect to our mobile banking app. It was 50% above the 2019 average. So customer behavior, specifically the German one, is really changing. And we are thoroughly analyzing the situation and also the impact on our business model, and we will adjust to it. And I'm also pretty confident that clients and customers will stick to this behavior even if the crisis is over, and we will take that into account.
I think you're planning to unveil new cost cuts at the end of the summer. You hired McKinsey to review your business model as well. Has that changed during this crisis? Are you thinking about a change to the strategy at the end of August, beginning of September still?
We announced it already in February when we talked about our 2019 full results, that we said that we are looking into our costs again, and that we want definitely to increase our profitability targets, and that we are currently doing. And indeed, Corona has added some new lights on it, and we will incorporate that, and we will update you over the summer.
And that was the Commerzbank CFO, Bettina Orlob. And interestingly, Nera, we've heard other banks as well, Deutsche Bank, talking about cutbacks in staff and also cutting pay at the top. The banks in Europe generally are not facing a good prospect.
Yeah, Commerzbank shares today down 4.7%. Of course, the other earnings that we had from ABN AMRO, which itself has been facing a lot of challenges. The fourth quarter feels like an eternity away, but you'll remember shares dropped after those earnings. They were sort of pushing back the guidance on the dividend, and the earnings missed. And in terms of what we heard from them today, their loss worse than expected, and a $1.2 billion hit in terms of provisions to account for loans. That was for the first quarter. We spoke to the CFO on TV as well, and the outlook was looking shaky too. This is Bloomberg.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Jen London with A Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. It's a free service, and we've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad. There's a place for answers, A Place for Mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-391-1755. That's 1-800-391-1755.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Have you wanted to...
Did somebody say just eat?
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Justeat.
Somebody say just eat.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
A half-price dream holiday, wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free, wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the U-Switch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
If you're buying anything online, take care and don't pay by money transfer. Always pay by card. Take time to check the seller is genuine, and if you're unsure, then stop and don't send any money.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, you know, I just...
Carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Now, we are seeing European equities in the red with the Stoxx 600 down 1.5%, the FTSE slipping 1.3%, and the DAX down as much as 1.9% in Frankfurt. It's particularly Commerzbank that is weighing on the Frankfurt index this morning, down more than 4% at the moment after falling into a loss in the first quarter and putting aside quite a bit of money to cover credit losses over the coronavirus. We're also seeing Aston Martin slipping more than 7% here in London. It also reported a loss and has withdrawn its previous guidance. It's now down 7%, as I said. But do keep an eye on UK house builders. They're gaining after that opening of the housing market that Leanne was just describing there. Now, we are seeing US futures pointing slightly higher. It follows a mixed trading day in Asia, where the Hang Seng is currently fairly flat. In currencies, I am keeping a close eye on the Kiwi dollar. It plunged 1% this morning after the RBNZ doubled its asset purchase program. Otherwise, we are seeing G10 currencies fairly range-bound. The Bloomberg dollar spot index up just 0.1%. The yen at 107 this morning. Sterling at 122 after that GDP print came in this morning. We did fall into a recession in the first quarter, but the number was slightly better than expected. The euro coming in at 108 this morning. 10-year treasury yields are down a basis point at 66 basis points. 10-year bund yields slipping 3 basis points, negative 53. Similarly so for 10-year gilt yields down to 22 basis points. Gold is fairly steady this morning. Oil is retreating from its highest level since April. We're seeing WTI down more than 1.5% at $25 a barrel. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you so much. Let's start here in the UK, where the weekly number of deaths linked to coronavirus in care homes dipped for the first time since the pandemic began as the country moves past the peak. Care homes have been a crucial battleground against the virus in Europe as countries struggle to keep their most vulnerable citizens safe. Fatalities linked to COVID-19 in England and Wales also fell for a second straight week, another sign the country's lockdown measures are working. Twitter says its employees will be able to choose to work from home permanently when the coronavirus outbreak finally recedes. CEO Jack Dorsey has told staff the company is unlikely to reopen its physical offices before September, but after that, most can work from home or wherever they want. Twitter employs about 5,000 people in 35 offices around the world. And finally, Rihanna has made her debut appearance on the Sunday Times Rich List with an estimated fortune of £468 million. The pop star, who now lives here in London, overtakes Elton John and Mick Jagger to claim third place on the list of Britain's richest musicians. Rihanna's earnings are largely due to her Fenty Beauty cosmetics brand. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, Roger, I'm going to make an admission. When I found out Rihanna had moved to London, I had a little daydream that we'd accidentally meet and become best friends.
And have you seen her? Have you met her?
I've not. Of course I haven't, Leanne.
I think you two are doing on those runs up hills together. That's what's going on.
I think she would love that. But
completely
it's so funny.
Illegally, of course.
Because I was in Battersea Park walking my dogs on Saturday and I bumped into Tom Hiddleston. He's obviously an actor, so it's possible in London.
Okay, sorry, we need to sit on that for a second. You bumped into him and spoke to him? Or?
No, I didn't speak to him. But I'm not very good on celebrities, so I was like, I really hope it is. Should I get a photograph or am I just weird? But I'm pretty sure it was. So Rihanna, maybe she's in a park doing those sprint runs, Naira.
Listen, Riri, if you're listening, I'm only on Twitter, so hit me up on those DMs, but don't do Insta, unfortunately. Okay, thanks so much, Leanne, with the world news. Let's get to the markets now, and Trevor Greetham, head of multi-asset at Royal London Asset Management, has been patiently waiting. Trevor, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Look, I was really taken by Stan Druckenmiller's comments, as I think we all were overnight, talking about a V-shaped recovery in the US being a fantasy and saying the risk-reward in stocks is the worst he's seen. I mean, those are pretty powerful comments. Do you agree with them to any extent?
I sort of do agree with them, but I think things are quite balanced in the short term. So you've got this combination of the fact that we all know activity is going to switch on in a major way. So we had the UK GDP number today, which was pretty bad. We're expecting to see some horrific numbers for Q2. So Barclaycard, for example, are saying transactions are down by 36%. But we know things will switch back on to some degree, and as we get that stronger data coming through again, it's possible markets will make a bit more headway. On the other hand, I'm a big believer in what they're calling the 90% economy. That the economy comes back, but it doesn't come back to the level it was in January this year. Only about 90% of activity comes back because this is a long fight against the virus, and lots of what the UK government's calling stage 3 industries, like hotels and leisure and hairdressers and all these sorts of service industries won't come back for some time. So I think you will have this sort of profile. I think it's more like a square root symbol to get very mathematical about it. It starts off looking like a V, and then it goes flat, and it goes flat at a level below where we'd like it to be. And I think as the markets start to see the data's come back, but it's not all coming back, then I think you've got the risk of a deeper sell-off.
So, Trevor, I mean, that's interesting. You're talking about that shape, that square root symbol. How long does that drop down, that sort of staying slightly down, continue? I mean, is that into the long term?
The most bearish bit of data out there I've seen lately came a couple of days ago in the government briefing when Beth Rigby from Sky asked what percentage of the UK population have got antibodies. And the answer was, based on an ONS sample, 3 weeks ago it was 10% of people in London have had coronavirus and 4% of people in the rest of the country. Now, if you kind of weight that by population, it's 5% of us have had coronavirus. This is data as of about 5 weeks ago when the lockdown started, so maybe it's a bit more than 5% now. But let's stick with the 5% figure. If you've got to get to 60% of us having had it to have so-called herd immunity, where the virus dies out, we're 1/12 of the way through the crisis. And that gives you an idea. And you've had Dr. Fauci overnight saying if you reopen too quickly, it could be a problem. And you've seen analysis where the reopening happening in Europe is happening much sooner in the crisis than happened in China or in the rest of Asia. So I think there's a lot further to go, and it may well be that the sort of second surge, as people are calling it, can be kept relatively under control, but can only be kept under control by sitting on the economy. And that's, I think, the issue that markets are beginning to realise. I mean, the last month, the stock markets have generally gone sideways, and I think they are looking for direction. I think it could move either way.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love square root symbol. It's sort of like the Nike swoosh, but even better, I think. The other one I've heard recently is bathtub. But with that outlook, Trevor, where you think that we could see markets wake up to the reality of a second wave and the fact the economy's not back to where it was, what approach do you take in multi-asset funds? Do you still stay pro-risk? Do you just buy what central bankers are buying?
Well, a bit of that. So we're sitting, we're just describing this as a flexible approach. So we've got a relatively neutral equity position, slightly overweight equities, but pretty neutral and ready to move in either direction. Having said that, we are buying what central banks have been saying they will buy. So we're still overweight global high yield. And the Fed has obviously said if necessary they will buy the high yield ETF. They've already said that the corporate bond program will apply to the so-called fallen angels, which are companies like Ford that have been downgraded. So there's lots of central bank support of the credit markets, because in the same way that the banks were too big to fail in the last financial crisis, in this big disintermediated world where everything's now about issuing bonds, the credit markets were too big to fail. So the Fed's massively supporting credit markets. They haven't actually spent any money yet, by the way, but they said they will. On the other hand, commodity prices haven't really been supported. OPEC's attempts failed to support the oil price, and commercial property doesn't get any support from policymakers. So we're sort of neutral equities, but we're overweight high-yield bonds where policymakers are buying. We're underweight commodities and real estate. And then there's a big sort of growth value trade going on within equities. So we're overweight the US, we're overweight technology, we're underweight the UK, underweight financials and industrials. We think that sort of growth stock outperformance will carry on even if there is a relapse.
Yeah, why overweight US equities, though, particularly? Because, I mean, we have seen some startlingly bad jobs figures from there and all these warnings that we're getting. I mean, why overweight US?
Well, it's not so much about the relative virus performance. The markets are beginning to look through a lot of that because different economies are going in slightly earlier or slightly later to their shutdowns. What that's really about is the structure of the S&P 500. So the market is about 40-odd% technology and healthcare, and that's the sector that's doing well. You know, in the UK GDP numbers today, the service sector that didn't contract was IT services. Not surprisingly, because they're all working from home and sort of phoning the help desk and buying new laptops or whatever. So I think that the growth stocks are big global growth stocks, and I think they will do pretty well, either in a recovery where business spending starts to pick up and interest rates just stay really low, and that helps the valuations of growth stocks, or in a situation where there's a relapse and the value stocks get hit again.
Yeah, and the one thing that Druckenmiller was bullish on amid all his bearish sentiment was Amazon. Trevor Greetham, head of multi-asset at Royal London Asset Management. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are almost an hour into the equity market open here. Roger, the Stock 600 still down at 1.5%. US futures have fluctuated a bit after the drawdown of 2% in the S&P 500 yesterday. S&P E-minis flat right now. NASDAQ and Dow futures in the green. This is Bloomberg.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
The idea is to really hold the economy in suspended animation until we get control of this virus.
We are very much in a picture of monetary dominance.
We will get slower growth. I mean, let's not get confused about that.
We are in a national crisis. I think it is for all parties to pull together.
The euro area is facing an economic contraction of a magnitude and speed that are unprecedented in peacetime.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, good morning from London. I'm Caroline Hepke.
And from the Bloomberg Bureau in Berlin, I'm Matt Miller. You're listening to Daybreak Europe on London DAB Digital Radio.
So equities this morning, Matt, slumping 1.5% for Europe. Yeah.
What is that?
And FTSE 100 also down by 1.2%. Look, we've got measures to ease the restrictions in Europe, and here in the UK, for example, trying to open up the housing market, at least in England. But there's just negative sentiment, worries about the strength of the US economy after Fauci's comments yesterday, and the potential for a second wave really anywhere in the world.
Do you get Dave Wilson's chart of the day email?
I do. Remind me today's.
So last night I was looking, because of the time change, we get it later, of course. And he showed a chart of the U.S. Stock market, essentially the S&P 500, 12 months after massive GDP drops. So when you have something like we had or you've had in the last quarter, 12 months later, he looks at the market, and going back through history, it's always a huge positive. He went back for the U.S. to 1949 and then looked at recessions in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and, of course, the great financial crisis. And there are these huge jumps 12 months later in the S&P 500. So I asked him to put together the same chart for the UK economy. And you see, after the biggest GDP declines, we took data going back to the 70s. 12 months later, in the FTSE All-Share Index, you see big, jumps. In a lot of cases, double-digit jumps, but never a decline.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's a question, though, about whether the health pandemic is going to be the same as all prior recessions. A lot of question marks really about how quickly the economy can get back to normal and people can return to work, given so much dependence on the vaccine.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, on the vaccine or on controlling it somehow, right? If you've got these limits, keeping the number of infections per 100,000 down, or keeping the reproduction rate down, etc. But I thought it was interesting to hear from Jim Bullard at the Federal Reserve overnight saying, look, if you don't open the economy soon, you're going to get basically these cascading bankruptcies that Stiglitz worried about, and just permanently scar the economy. We deal with certain issues. For example, we don't stop flying to places on vacation because of terrorism. We don't stop driving because people die in car accidents. And I realize this is a different scenario here. I'm not advocating for one thing or the other, but Bullard was saying maybe you don't want to completely destroy the global economy because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, and risk is such a tricky one to quantify, how people understand risk, isn't it? Right, let's just take you through briefly the rest of the markets before we get to our guest, Matt. The Deutsche DAX at the moment down by more than 2% this morning, and actually looking at US futures for the market open there, S&P 500 E-mini futures are actually down 0.1%. They've been kind of fluctuating around the flat line. As for the bond markets, negative 53 basis points for German yields, so down 3 basis points, but we jumped 2.5 basis points for Italian BTPs, 1.91%, and all eyes really on the bond sales in Italy for what they tell us about the strength of Europe. And the oil markets this morning down by 3.3% on Brent crude at the moment, $28.99, $25.14 for WTI crude futures, also dropping 2.5%. So those are the markets.
All right, so you've got a look at the markets. Let's get over right now to our guest for this hour, Sarah Hewen, chief economist for the Americas and Europe at Standard Chartered. She was with me on TV earlier, and we appreciate you sticking around. Sarah, what do you think about the risk that Bullard warns of, the risk of permanent damage to the economy if we remain shut down too long?
Well, it's clearly a big challenge, and we can already see the impact of the lockdowns across the states in the data that we've had so far. For the first quarter, big fall in GDP, and for the current quarter, expecting to see GDP down by 50% or so annualized. So the question is, how quickly can states safely emerge from lockdown? And obviously the concern is that if you emerge too swiftly, you face another round of the virus, which forces another partial lockdown, which has even worse economic consequences than we've seen so far. So I think it's a balancing act, and the worry I think is that many states are opening up while not adhering to the recommendations made by the White House, and that there is a genuine risk of a second cycle of infection, rising infection. So for now, maybe it's too early to talk about getting back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, the UK numbers this morning, Sarah, the economy shrinking 5.8% in March, month on month. So basically, we're in recession here just after the first quarter, saw a decline in GDP of 2%. In Britain. The tone that I get very much at the moment is that nobody wants to be the first person to have to go back to work, whatever the shape of the workplace. So there's, a lot of anxiety, I feel, in the UK about actually trying to get the economy back up and running, despite the cost of the furlough scheme to Rishi Sunak and so on. How quickly do you think we're going to be able to reopen in Britain?
Well, there are some very, very tentative steps being taken already today, and I think that there has been a general experience of increased traffic, increased footfall, and so you could argue that in the very early days, some businesses closed down that maybe didn't have to, and now we're starting to see people, emerging again, and while still maintaining social distancing, going back to work. For the UK, I think a lot of lessons will be taken from our neighbours on the continent, because, of course, you've seen countries like Italy and Germany opening up earlier. They went into lockdown earlier than the UK did. To the extent that easing restrictions doesn't result in a very swift reacceleration of infection rates, then that will be of some comfort to the UK as we start to move out of lockdown. And of course, many sectors are still operating for people who are able to work from home. Then the message is clear, carry working from home. And that has been successful in some sectors.
Okay, do you see a swift rebound then, a V-shape? I mean, that's what the Bank of England was talking about just days ago, but, the attempt to reopen the economy by the Prime Minister on Sunday and this week seems to kind of, seems to show that that's not possible.
Yes, I think, when we're talking about a V-shape, of course, we're not talking about getting back to the way things were back in January and February anytime soon. So it's more a case that we get to a very low point, which we're probably at, in April and May, and that we see sort of even a partial return to work being reflected in better economic data. So that's the V, that we do reach the sort of bottom level, and that rather than carrying on down, we start to move back up again. Now, we're not expecting that GDP is going to be back to its end 2019 level even by the end of this year. So maybe it's a slight sort of sideways tilted V-shaped or a Nike swoosh rather than, back to how things were. But I think that, it is different to perhaps what we saw at the time of the global financial crisis, where we had several quarters of continuing negative quarterly growth. We wouldn't expect that for Q3, for example. We would expect to see growth positive, and it could be quite strongly positive. Not saying that activity is going to be, massively overheating, but just that starting from such a low base, we would actually expect to see a strong rebound.
Yeah, Bullard says we could see a record, at least in the U.S. for growth in the third quarter. On the other hand, Druckenmiller says the V-shape is a fantasy, and he doesn't believe that the stimulus programs will be enough to overcome real-world economic problems. So I guess it takes two sides to make a market. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. Sarah Hewen there from Standard Chartered.
Right, let's get over to Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans. She's got all the latest world and national news. Good morning, Leanne.
Caroline, good morning, and thank you very much. Let's start here in the UK, where an easing of the lockdown begins today, with what the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has called baby steps towards reopening the economy. In England, people will be able to spend unlimited time outdoors, and those who can't work from home are being encouraged to go to their jobs. Meanwhile, the government has extended its furlough scheme until at least October. Bloomberg Economics says the total cost could reach £84 billion. Now in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says his government will spend a total of $265 billion to help Asia's third largest economy withstand the impact of the coronavirus pandemic.
The economic announcements made by the government during the pandemic, decisions made by the Reserve Bank of India, and the economic package that is being announced today are together worth nearly $266 billion.
The package will help the economy get back on its feet after weeks of lockdown measures, but Modi is facing mounting criticism for the pain inflicted on India's poor during this time. Now, Tokyo has not seen an increase in deaths during the coronavirus outbreak, further evidence that the country has avoided the worst of the pandemic. Bloomberg's Gerard Reedy has more.
Data from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government show that the Japanese capital saw fewer deaths than normal in the 3 months through March. The figures stand in contrast to New York City, which has seen 4 times the number of deaths as expected. The data boosts assertions by Japanese authorities that they've largely kept the infection under control, despite facing criticism over the limited scope of testing. In Tokyo, Gerard Reedy, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And President Trump's top disease expert has told Congress that reopening the U.S. economy too soon threatens a new spike in coronavirus infections. Anthony Fauci told the Senate Health Committee that he's concerned about cities and states relaxing infection curbs without meeting guidelines on when it might be safe. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Caroline.
Thank you so much for that update from Leanne Gerrans there. Let's get all the sports news and how they're trying to reopen. Here's Joe Rawson.
The Premier League will meet with club captains, managers and medical experts later to discuss the next stages of returning to play football. It's been reported that players must agree to new health and safety protocols before they'll be allowed to train in groups. Meanwhile, there's a crunch meeting between clubs in the Football League later. It's been widely reported that teams in League 1 and League 2 will both cancel the current campaign, with promotion and relegation being decided on a points per game ratio, but there's a desire from sides in the Championship to try and play out the rest of the season behind closed doors. And Scarlets winger Tom James has announced his retirement from rugby union. The winger, who won 12 caps for Wales, is Cardiff's record try scorer, having scored 60 times during his time at the club.
So that was the sports news with Joe Rawson. Still ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, Deutsche Bank is resuming job cuts after putting them on hold at the height of the pandemic in March. This, as Christian Saving works to meet his cost-cutting targets, including a 20% reduction in headcount. So we're going to take you through that major European story with Bloomberg Opinion's Elisa Martinuzzi. That's coming up next. In the meantime, we're down 1.5% on US stocks at 600 firms at the moment. The FTSE 100 drops 1.1%. You're listening to Bloomberg live from London and Berlin.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
The Boston Symphony Orchestra presents BSO at Home. While you stay inside, enjoy a curated collection of archived concerts and behind-the-scenes stories from BSO musicians. BSO Homeschool provides lessons for music lovers of all ages. New performances and messages from musicians are added regularly. Enjoy these selections and much more at bso.org/at-home.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann.
Many schools across America and others around the world have announced they will be closed for the rest of the school year due to the coronavirus outbreak, leaving parents adjusting to a new normal for the next several weeks or months. So how can parents adjust? Joining us now is Stephanie Dua, co-founder and president of Homer, a Learn to Read app for young children. Stephanie, great to have you with us. So first of all, how has this coronavirus pandemic affected your business?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. So Homer, like many other ed tech companies, has seen an explosion in growth. We've seen 300% growth in our sales, and we're seeing even more in engagement. So our daily active, monthly active users are growing by the day. So it's a moment for us. We're a very mission-driven company, so we really see this as kind of our moment to help support parents.
It seems a lot of these education tools are now done online. Are there any concerns by parents or others about this amount of screen time the kids are spending on these devices?
Yeah, it's been a long-standing debate. The way we like to think of it is we're moving from is screen time good or bad to more like what does quality screen time look like, and we think of it as mindful media.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from Bloomberg's World Headquarters in New York City. I'm Anne-Marie Horderm with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. While U.S. equity futures are eking out a gain this morning, we are decisively risk off in Europe this morning. In the FTSE, the CAC, and the DAX are all down more than 1%. The benchmark index, the SOX 600, down 1 4/10%. Every sector I'm looking at this morning is in the red, led lower by insurance companies, automakers, and travel and leisure stocks. We had both downbeat comments yesterday on the economic front from regional Fed chiefs like James Bullard. That coupled together with although cautious comments from top health officials, Dr. Anthony Fauci warning about reopening too early. Also, to that note, there is concern around the world of a second wave of infections. We see new virus cases increase in South Korea, China, and Germany. That is likely weighing on some of that sentiment. In the currency market this morning, I'm looking at cable, the British pound, 1.22. So a bit off there against the U.S. dollar. The UK economy shrank almost 6% in March. It may be the deepest recession in more than 3 centuries. Something certainly to watch. Treasuries this morning are holding on to some of those gains. We do have yields on the 10-year yield down 1.9%, 0.66% on the 10-year yield. And also gold this morning is also selling off slightly, a little bit risk off there as well. But we are at that $1,700 an ounce level. And oil this morning, $25 for WTI, $28.99, so well below $30 a barrel on Brent. OPEC will be giving its monthly oil report today. We'll be looking forward to that. It's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more what's going on around the world. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning, Anne-Marie, and thank you. Let's start here in the UK, where the weekly number of deaths linked to coronavirus in care homes dipped for the first time since the pandemic began. As the country moves past the peak, care homes have been a crucial battleground against the virus in Europe as countries struggle to keep their most vulnerable citizens safe. Fatalities linked to COVID-19 in England and Wales also fell for a second straight week. Another sign the country's lockdown measures are indeed working. The pharmaceutical maker Gilead is licensing its potential coronavirus treatment remdesivir to 5 generic drug manufacturers in India and Pakistan. This measure should help speed supply chain development and meet anticipated demand. The companies will be able to produce the drug without paying Gilead royalties. That's until the World Health Organization declares the end of the pandemic or until another drug or vaccine is approved. And Brazil has reported a new record for coronavirus deaths. That's as Latin America's largest economy becomes the new global hotspot. The country reported 881 deaths yesterday, pushing the total to 12,400. Last week, the country exceeded the UK's daily death toll. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Now it's 9:20 a.m. here in London. Time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion, and we're joined by opinion columnist Elisa Martinuzzi to discuss Deutsche Bank's announcement that it will resume job cards and that top management is renouncing a month's pay. So interesting steps as saving tries to return to cost cutting. Is this a precedent really for other banks?
Well, I think what you're seeing is, of course, we're very early days into the pandemic in terms of the hit to the financial services industry. But, the pressures that some of these institutions were under before are even greater now, particularly if you're an institution such as Deutsche Bank that was right in the midst of a large restructuring to try and bolster profitability. The pandemic has only made that much more difficult.
What have we learned from the first quarter earnings then from the big European banks, in terms of what they're setting aside and how they're going to perhaps be able to get through the pandemic?
Well, I think what we've learned is that the banks are expected to see their earnings pretty much halved this year. This is what analysts are expecting. But on the positive side, you have revenue that, particularly in the Eurozone, could hold up more strongly than people had perhaps feared. However, you've seen, some big losers, even in a very strong quarter on the trading side. So doesn't necessarily mean that just because you have a buoyant market that you only have winners. And of course, the French banks having to, facing some big losses in their equity derivative business is a reminder of the perils of being very exposed to that sector. What you also saw, though, of course, is that, with all the regulatory flexibility that's been introduced in terms of capital, you've got reassurances that banks really should not fall below their capital requirements, which means that, for the time being, it doesn't seem as if, banks, certainly the bigger banks, will need to tap investors for capital.
Okay, well, that's an interesting one. No doubt investors will be concerned about that. But then do you think we're also starting to get a sense of how different banks are actually going to look over the coming years? I mean, it's hard to know, isn't it, with what everyone talks about as being a temporary shock, and yet the lag could be significant.
Yes, no, absolutely. And you'll see that, first of all, in provisions, which have differed quite widely between institutions that have been that are seen to have been sort of front-loading the potential credit losses, as opposed to others that seem to have taken a rather more positive outlook for the time being. In terms of how that will shape through, how banks look, I think what clearly will face a lot of pressure are the branch networks. Banks have shown that they can operate with staff working remotely, and that's actually been quite a significant positive surprise. The operational risk of having all these people working remotely goes to show that certainly you don't need to have people all in the same building. And of course, in terms of dealing with your customers through the branch network, with the pressure on cost, the shift to digitization, that will only accelerate that move away from branches.
Yeah, which had already been moving pretty quickly across Europe, hadn't it? Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Bloomberg opinion columnist Elisa Martinuzzi talking us through that Deutsche Bank announcement, the resumption of job cuts, and also really at the sort of tail end of first quarter earnings from the big European banks. Bloomberg opinion columnist Elisa Martinuzzi, you can read more of her stories from Bloomberg Opinion, bloomberg.com/opinion, and on the terminal by typing in OPIN GO. But now we have an interesting tale. Remember the Hound of Hounslow? Our next guest has written the story of Navinder Singh Sarao. He was accused of helping to trigger the 2010 flash crash, if you remember, from his basement in West London. Bloomberg's Liam Vaughan is going to be joining us next with his new book. It's being turned into a movie, perhaps. This is Bloomberg.
With a Bloomberg Business of Sports report, I'm Michael Barr. Major League Baseball owners gave the go-ahead to make a proposal to the union that could lead to the coronavirus delayed season starting around the 4th of July weekend in ballparks without fans. The plan also calls for expanding the designated hitter to the National League for 2020. London Mayor Sadiq Khan says he believes it is too early for the Premier League to be planning a resumption of the season amid the coronavirus pandemic. Premier League clubs Arsenal, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, and West Ham all play in London. The mayor's office says the league should resume only when it is safe to do so. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that sports events in the country could resume in June if there is not a new spike in COVID-19 infections. And that is the Bloomberg Business of Sports report. I'm Michael Barr, brought to you by Marcus by Goldman Sachs. With a high-yield online savings account, you can money.
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg terminal. The buy side and the sell side together, collaborating across markets and countries in real time, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network of over 325,000 financial professionals that helps power global markets. Isn't it time you join them? Request a demo at bloomberg.com/professional.
If you're having a business dispute, you know time is money. The longer your case proceeds, the more your case can cost. So speed up your resolution with the American Arbitration Association. Arbitration with the American Arbitration Association is faster. In fact, the median time frame for an American Arbitration Association B2B arbitration to be awarded is nearly 16 months faster than the U.S. courts. ADR.org. Resolve faster.
Why did somebody say just me? Get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Justeat. Somebody say just eat.
Introducing the new single, Impossible. From Central American rock and blues trio, Steady Rolling. It's not impossible. Their epic story of love and loss continues. Download and stream the single, Impossible, from the band Steady Rolling, wherever good music lives.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
A half-price dream holiday, wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free, wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the U-Switch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Good morning from the Bloomberg Bureau in Berlin. I'm Matt Miller, back from a false alarm, a fire alarm. We had a little fire alarm in the office.
Yes.
So I was out for the last
couple of minutes, didn't you? But good to have you back, Matt. I'm Caroline Hepker here in London. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. In terms of the markets, Matt, we're actually down by 1.3% on the US Stock 600. So it's pretty negative tone across Europe this morning. The worst performer looks to be the CAC 40 index, down by 1.8%. And in terms of the US Open, US futures, S&P 500 E-mini futures actually gaining 0.2%, despite the sort of shock and the comments from Anthony Fauci, from Druckenmiller about the concerns about the US economy reopening, and Druckenmiller talking about the V-shaped recovery being a fantasy. As for the bond markets, we are at negative 53 basis points for German yields, so down 2.5 basis points. Italian BTPs at 1.91%. As for the euro, we trade at 1.0841, so slightly weaker for the euro. The Bloomberg dollar spot index strengthening again. We were speaking to Viraj Patel earlier on this morning, FX trader. He was saying he doesn't see an end to dollar strength, that really continues despite the hit to the US economy.
Yeah, and that's a problem for a lot of other markets, right? If you have that continued dollar strength, it's going to be a continued problem for emerging markets, going to be a continued problem for a lot of, copper is one of them that I was thinking about. You could see copper take a huge hit. We've already seen it happen to oil, so commodities get hit. In any case, it'll be interesting to watch for sure. Also, this month is the 10-year anniversary of the flash crash. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
I have to say one of the most unreal days in my career. In any case, the serial spoofer who traded from his parents' basement bedroom in West London only to be prosecuted for helping to precipitate the May 2010 flash crash is also known as the Hound of Hounslow. The tale gets a Hollywood ending, it seems, via a book written by our next guest. Liam Vaughan is an investigative journalist for Bloomberg News based here in London. He has written Flash Crash, a trading savant, a global manhunt, and the most mysterious market crash in history. It's out this week in the UK and the US as well. And we mentioned Hollywood because it's going to be made into a movie where the trader, Nav Sarao, as we all know now, Navinder Sarao, is being played by Dev Patel, the guy from Slumdog Millionaire. So that's pretty cool. Let's get Liam on the line now. And so is he really responsible? Was he really responsible for the flash crash? Did we decide in the end that he is the culprit?
Well, you have to read the book, you know. I think ultimately I sort of draw a comparison in the book to attempts to find who's responsible for, the First World War or something. Like, there's a million different factors at play, from the volatility in the markets, from the rise of HFT to a huge sell order that was placed by a Kansas City pension fund, to Nav Sarao sitting in his bedroom spoofing literally hundreds of millions of dollars of orders. So, they all are active in the market, they all contribute, but is he responsible? I don't think anyone has ever been able to prove that, including the US authorities.
Yeah, but it still meant some detention and punishment for him. He was sentenced in Chicago earlier this year. So tell us a bit about the personal story. I mean, one has to feel also a little bit sort of sad for him. He's autistic as well, and that sort of did play into things too.
Yeah, Navinder Sarao is a really remarkable character. He, lived in very modest house underneath the Heathrow flight path. Went to a half-decent school and got good grades, but never really had any ties to the world of high finance or anything like that. And in 2003, he applied for a job that literally said, wanted futures traders. And it was a new arcade that was opening up in a place called Weybridge in Surrey, which is 45 minutes away from all the action of the City of London. And he got a position there. And unlike most of the people that were around him, he turned out to be incredibly good at it. He was a preternaturally gifted sort of mathematician. He had great photographic recall, and he was also a keen computer gamer. So he took to this form of trading known as scalping, which is very, very short-term trading, like a duck to water. And within a very short space of time, he was literally creaming millions and millions of dollars out of the market all the time. And then at some point he makes a fateful decision on which this sort of action in my book turns, to start using more nefarious means to fight back against what he considered to be a sort of unfair and rigged marketplace.
Well, he's not the only one who was spoofing, right? He was just better at it than everybody else. Is that the case?
He was definitely bigger than everyone else. So, a lot of people see him in his tracksuit and the fact he drove a moped and the fact that he never told anyone about the money. He didn't tell his parents, he didn't tell his friends.
And he didn't spend much of it, right? More importantly, I think, to traders.
Absolutely. He hardly spent a penny. It was almost like it was a computer score, and if he didn't touch it, it wasn't real. Sorry, remind me of the question again.
Wait, why didn't he touch it? I mean, do you think, Liam, that he knew in his heart that these were ill-gotten gains? Is that why he didn't, buy himself an island?
a Ferrari. So there's this, cute little anecdote, but it's quite telling, that he had a bicycle that he used to drive around West London, which is bright yellow, and it had a sticker on it that said Lamborghini. And when he bumped into friends, he used to say, "Do you want to see my Lambo?" And obviously the irony was that he had $17 billion in the bank. He could have bought several Lamborghinis. He, was asked that question, and he basically said that he didn't want people to treat him differently. He was, ultimately quite a vulnerable kid. He was later diagnosed with Asperger's, and he liked playing football with his friends. He liked going to McDonald's, and he didn't want the hassle and the maybe the infamy and the stress of being out there in the world and spending all this money. So he just preferred to keep his life very small and just let the money accumulate.
Yeah, listen, it's a tale that has fascinated, everybody right from the start, including the British newspapers, of course, that gave him that moniker, the Hound of Hounslow, and kind of couldn't quite wrap their minds around the fact that he made so much money and didn't spend much of it. Thank you so much for joining us, Bloomberg's Liam Vaughan, on his new book, Flash Crash, A Trading Savants, out in the US and the UK today. I also think there's a piece about it in Business Week, and we look forward to the movie, of course, the Hollywood version of it.
I have to say, now I'll editorialize a little bit here. We were showing VO of this guy, of Nav Sarao, earlier. Mm-hmm. I feel like he is way better looking than the actor who's playing him. I mean, he looks like a model. He looked like a high fashion model. He's always wearing like cool black leather jackets or hoodies that make him look mysterious.
Yeah, he did look quite cool coming out of the Chicago court, but probably not that cool of an experience, I imagine, having to face that ire. But anyway, let's get over to Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans, who's got all the latest in world and national news. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning, Caroline, and thank you very much. Let's start here in the UK, where an easing of the lockdown begins today with what Prime Minister Boris Johnson has called baby steps towards reopening the economy. In England, people will be able to spend unlimited time outdoors, and those who can't work from home are being encouraged to go to their jobs. Meanwhile, the government has extended its furlough scheme until at least October. Bloomberg Economics says a total cost could reach £84 billion. Now in Russia, President Vladimir Putin's spokesman has become the latest top official to test positive for coronavirus. That's as Russia overtakes Spain to record the world's second highest number of infections. From Moscow, Bloomberg's Henry Mayer reports.
Dmitry Peskov joins Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin and the country's construction and culture ministers as diagnosed with COVID-19. Peskov, traditionally the official with the closest day-to-day access to the Russian leader, said in a text message he last met the president in person a month ago. In Moscow, Henry Mayer, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And Hong Kong's leader Carrie Lam is pushing a pro-China agenda, risking the wrath of President Trump and a resurgence of pro-democracy protesters. Bloomberg's Karen Lee reports.
She said this week that a controversial bill making it illegal to disrespect the Chinese anthem would get priority in the city's legislature, calling it necessary for school curriculum reforms that would foster a national identity. Her defiance matches a more aggressive approach by her bosses in Beijing to rein in the pro-democracy camp, which last year staged its biggest pushback against Chinese rule since Britain returned to the city decades ago. In Hong Kong, Karen Lee, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne Gerrans. We're going to talk more this morning about the UK's GDP print, which beat estimates, but also, of course, showed the economy plunging into recession in the first quarter. Adam Cole, Global Head of FX Strategy at RBC Europe, will be joining us next. We're going to talk about sterling, slightly higher this morning, up 0.1%. This is Bloomberg.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Who's in your corner? At Commonwealth Financial Network, our advisors would say we are. Our supportive environment lets you be true to yourself, and our culture of accountability means we don't just ask for your feedback. We act on it, so we can deliver the solutions you need to enrich the lives of your clients and build the business you've always dreamed of. Ready to discover the difference? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Debbie Hart is president of BioNJ, which represents the interests of more than 400 New Jersey-based biotech companies. She's also a strong voice in the biotech sector, supporting research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology. She sees NJIT as a valuable partner in attracting venture capital and biotech startups to the Garden State.
So the number one reason that companies come here to New Jersey for the biotech industry is for our talent. We estimate that there were about 30 biotech companies in the early 90s in New Jersey, about 80 in 1998. Today there are more than 400. And that growth continues, and it's come from every possible angle. Other countries, other states, they've spun out of our academic institutions as well as our biotech and our pharma companies, and we expect that growth to continue long into the future. And NJIT is a pipeline for talent, for companies, for entrepreneurs to do that important work.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
President of the Jewish Communal Fund.
Did somebody say just eat? Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. J-U-S-T-E-A-T. Somebody say, just eat.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
A half-price dream holiday, wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free, wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the U-Switch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores online, subject to availability.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
Please be wary of text messages containing links. They may appear to be from legitimate senders like the government, a bank or a delivery company, but never enter your online banking information or personal details after clicking on a link.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
Typical Danny. Last night I was chilling with my girls.
but ended up spilling my Chardonnay all over my fave lilac nightie when I saw the photo I was tagged in. State of my fake tan. But no worries, just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from Bloomberg's World Headquarters in New York City. I'm Anne-Marie Harderm with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. What we are seeing in Europe this morning is risk off. All major indices are down more than 1%. FTSE 100 down more than 1%. CAC 1.8%, and the DAX 1.6%. The Stock 600, every sector is down. Travel, leisure down more than 2%. Autos and financials as well, leading the charge lower. Not one single sector is in the green this morning, though U.S. equity futures are pointing up a little bit, a higher start in New York, but they did come under pressure, those U.S. Equities. Yesterday, we had from the economic side some worries from Fed officials about what the pandemic has meant to economies being locked down. But then, of course, on the health side, Dr. Anthony Fauci really warning about the Senate about they need to be cautious and reopening too early. In currencies this morning, I'm looking at the British pound, 1.22. UK economy shrank almost 6% in March, and they say the worst is yet to come just yet. So that's one to watch, of course. And then this morning, gold trading around $1,700 an ounce, maintaining that level, though it is off 1 percentage point. And then in the oil market this morning, Brent crude $29.32. We are waiting that OPEC report. It's down 2% today on the benchmark. That's a Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning, Anne-Marie, and thank you. Let's start here in the UK, where the weekly number of deaths linked to coronavirus in care homes has dipped for the first time since the pandemic began. As the country moves past the peak, care homes have been a crucial battleground against the virus in Europe as countries struggle to keep their most vulnerable citizens safe. Fatalities linked to COVID-19 in England and Wales also fell for a second straight week, another sign the country's lockdown measures are working. As Anne-Marie mentioned, President Trump's top disease expert has told Congress that reopening the U.S. economy too soon threatens a new spike in coronavirus infections. Anthony Fauci told the Senate Health Committee that he's concerned about cities and states relaxing infection curbs without meeting guidelines on when it might indeed be safe. And finally, pop star Rihanna has made her debut appearance on the Sunday Times Rich List with an estimated fortune of £468 million. The pop star, who now lives here in London, overtakes Elton John and Mick Jagger to claim third place on the Rich List of Britain's richest musicians. Rihanna's earnings are largely due to her Fenty Beauty cosmetics brand. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is Bloomberg. Matt.
So first of all, I'm a fan, I'll tell you.
Of Riri?
Yes. Well, I like the Loud album. You know, it's called Loud.
It's a very good album.
Have you got it?
I've got it. I do. I really like Rihanna, actually. She's brought out some amazing tracks, and a lot of them have been anthems for summer. So I feel like she needs to drop an album soon, and a lot of people are encouraging her to do that on social media.
Drop an album, the lingo. Look at you. What is the Fenty cosmetics brand? Is that like makeup? Does she sell makeup?
She sells makeup, and I think Fenty is actually her name, her maiden name, so it's her Christian name, but I can't be quoted on that. And the makeup brand is amazing, and it's done so well because of the color range. Like any skin color she's added into the range, so she's just got volumes of makeup that appeals to every single race, color, and person out there.
This is how you make money these days, right? Isn't one of the Kardashians like a billionaire because of her
Well,
makeup?
It's Kylie Jenner, which is a Kardashian sister, and she's obviously got the Kylie brand, and her lip kits, well, she's a billionaire.
Wow, that's what we need to be doing. Makeup, especially in the lockdown, that's what we have time to do. Especially for Skype, FaceTime, etc. You need it.
Big ups. Well, let's get over to someone else who knows a lot about the world of cosmetics, high-end cosmetics. Nathan Hager, getting ready for the
culture information in your back pocket there, Leanne. That is amazing.
I think
we didn't even go for the lavender undies one. Because she sells underwear too.
All right, I'm going to drop it. As we get into underwear, I'll just drop it. I'll get out of that conversation and get into
records.
Daybreak
topics.
Americas. What do you got coming up, Nathan?
Well, good morning, Matt. We're starting off with the latest moves on Capitol Hill that investors may be wanting to keep an eye on this morning. On the House side, Democrats have put out a massive proposal for the next round of stimulus. We'll have the details on that. While in the Senate, Republicans are focused on pushing new sanctions on China. All this as we did get that warning in the Senate yesterday from Dr. Fauci about the risks of reopening, potentially spiking new infections. We're going to sort through all these signals this morning with Andrea Ciccione of TS Lombard as we wait potentially for even more signals in just a few hours from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. He is due to speak later today. We also have Professor Andy Pekosh of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health back with us this morning to bring us the latest research on COVID-19 and whether he thinks it's safe to reopen at this point. So join me and Karen Moscow for all that. Coming up just a few minutes' time here on Bloomberg.
That'll be an interesting conversation. I wonder if the way to frame it, is it safe to reopen, or is there a safe way to reopen?
Now that it's happening, yeah,
because
are we going in the safe way at this point? I mean, most states are partially reopening at this point, so yeah.
And as are a lot of countries in Europe. So that's a conversation you don't want to miss with Nathan and Karen. If you're listening on Sirius XM, if you're listening on London DAB digital radio in the city, you'll hear Bloomberg Surveillance.
Now let's talk about what's going on in the UK. The big number out of the economy. It shrank almost 6% in March, plunging into what may be the deepest recession in more than 3 centuries for the UK. The slump means that GDP fell 2% for the first quarter overall. Bloomberg Economics says, though, that the worst is yet to come, with output forecast to drop 17% in the second quarter. Adam Cole is Global Head of FX Strategy at RBC Europe. Adam, good morning. Thanks for joining us. The GDP print for the quarter not quite as bad as you had expected. And in terms of sterling this morning, we're slightly stronger at 1/10%. What do you make of the number?
So I think there's relatively little information in that number. Remember, of course, that the UK lockdown only started a week before the end of March. So the whole quarter's data, or even the whole month's data, only incorporate a week or so of the collapse in activity. And the question really is how much of that happened in March and how much spilled into April. And it looks like from today's data that the bulk of it probably spilled into April. So I think it's hard to draw any real conclusions on how big the aggregate fall in activity was until we've seen the data for April. And I think they will be spectacularly bad and really contain a lot more forward-looking information than that number for March. So a little bit of an upside surprise, but as I said, I think the information content is quite limited.
You run, global FX strategy at RBC. So looking outside of the UK, where do you see the most action? I mean, which pairs do you focus on right now, Adam?
So in terms of today and the immediate news flow, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand was interesting. Its currency had a virtual collapse overnight as the central bank there sent a very strong signal that he's prepared to countenance cutting interest rates into negative territory. Its rates are 0.25% positive at the moment, and we thought we were in a world where most central banks had reached what they're calling their effective lower bounds. Now, this is interesting in today's context in that we have Chairman Powell, of course, speaking at 9 this morning Eastern Time, and the question that people are very much looking for him to give us some answers on is, will the Fed contemplate cutting interest rates into negative territory? Unlike the Reserve Bank in New Zealand, I think the signal is going to be that the Fed wants the structure of the US economy
even though
President
President Trump said there are huge benefits to negative interest rates. He said it's a gift for those who have it. Do you agree?
It's a gift for parts of the economy, but it's also a heavy burden for other parts of the economy. Those parts of the economy matter a lot more in the US than they do in the other economies where we have experimented with negative rates. So New Zealand saying it might Sweden and Switzerland already having experimented with negative rates. What differentiates the UK is the importance of money market funds, which barely exist in most European economies and are a very important part of the US economy. So the cost-benefit balance, which Trump may not have acknowledged, of course, but the cost-benefit balance in the US is very much skewed by the fact that there is a whole industry which loses from negative interest rates, and I think that will be forefront in the Fed's mind, and something that hopefully we'll get some signals from Mr. Powell on later on today.
Yeah, I suppose it's also whether you think that the market leads the Fed or the Fed leads in terms of policy. The Fed may be pushed there, right, briefly?
Well, yes, I mean, there's an element of both, clearly, but I think, if you look back at recent experience over the last 2 to 3 years, there are as many occasions, although this is less widely recognised, there are many occasions where the market expectation has converged towards the Fed, as there are where the Fed has converged to confirm market expectations. The data historically are more ambiguous, I think, than people realise. So it's not necessarily the case that futures dipping into negative territory necessarily lead the Fed there.
We got to wrap it up there, Adam, but thanks so much for joining us. Adam Cole, Global Head of FX Strategy at RBC Europe. This is Bloomberg.
Did somebody say just eat? Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Justeat. Somebody say just eat.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
A day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. Coming up this hour.
House Democrats unveil a new $3 trillion coronavirus relief package.
Senate Republicans push for sanctions on China tied to the outbreak.
Stocks slide as Anthony Fauci warns on the risk of new infections.
And a renowned hedge fund manager calls a V-shaped recovery a fantasy.
Governor Murphy says New Jersey's ratio leads big U.S. states in COVID-19 cases, plus Broadway will remain closed through the summer. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. Baseball has its plan for a return. Now we'll see if the players will go along with it. NBA players overwhelmingly say they want to return.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak is brought to you by SEI. Crises bring out the best in people. Character, community, partnership. Together as one, SEI. Go to SEIC.com/IMS.
And U.S. futures are little changed after yesterday's 2% decline for the S&P 500. It's 5:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures, they're down 2 points. Dow futures are up 4. NASDAQ futures up 13. The DAX in Germany down 1.9%. The CAC in Paris down 2.1%. And the FTSE 100 is down 1.25%. Nikkei 225 in Japan was down 0.5%. And the Hang Seng in Hong Kong down about 0.3%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 0.66%. Yield on the 2-year 0.16%. NYMEX crude oil down 1% or 26 cents at $25.52 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.1% on $1.60 at $17.0520 an ounce. The euro 1.0845 against the dollar. The yen is at 107.03. Nathan.
Karen, we begin in Washington, where House Democrats are unveiling a $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the measure combines aid for local governments with expanded unemployment insurance and cash payments to consumers.
We must put more money in the pockets of the American people. This is not only necessary for their survival, but it is also a stimulus to the economy.
The proposal is full of progressive priorities that are unlikely to gain approval in the Senate, but it could serve as an opening bid in negotiations with the White House.
Meantime, Senate Republicans are pushing to impose sanctions on China if the government does not cooperate with an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. The move is likely to escalate tensions with Beijing. Here with more is Bloomberg's Derek Wallbank in Singapore.
This bill is a very clear measure to try and escalate pressure on China to disclose more information than U.S. lawmakers believe that China is willing to do right now. You've also seen similar pressure tactics with a Senate-passed measure seeking to get Taiwan to regain WHO status. That was another sort of thing where lawmakers are trying to increase pressure on China.
The Senate's also moving on a third measure targeting Beijing. It's taking up a bill to impose sanctions on Chinese officials tied to human rights abuses against Muslim majorities.
As states reopen across the country, President Trump's top disease expert is warning about the risk of new outbreaks.
My concern is that we will start to see little spikes that might turn into outbreaks.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says ignoring federal guidelines for reopening could lead to a sharp rise in infections.
There is a real risk that you will trigger an outbreak that you may not be able to control, which in fact, paradoxically, will set you back, not only leading to some suffering and death that could be avoided, but could even set you back on the road to trying to get economic recovery.
Fauci warns we could also see a fresh outbreak in the fall. He says testing remains a crucial element in the fight to contain the virus.
The S&P 500 shed more than 2% following that testimony as concerns surface about the push to get America back to work. Mona Mahajan is U.S. investment strategist at Allianz Global Investors.
In just 6.5 weeks, we've climbed back nearly 30%. So even in a more normal time without the overhang of a pandemic, we would certainly expect a period of consolidation after that type of move. Perhaps we're starting to see that here. Certainly that was exacerbated by the comments we heard from Dr. Fauci, which were not all that encouraging in terms of what may happen as we begin this reopening process.
Right now, S&P futures are down 2.5 points, and we're seeing volatility back on the rise. The VIX currently at 32.63.
Sobering comments from Stan Druckenmiller are also weighing on sentiment. The renowned hedge fund manager calls the prospect for a V-shaped recovery a fantasy. He says the risk-reward calculation for equities is the worst he's ever seen. Here with more is Bloomberg's Mark Mills.
Speaking during a webcast held by the Economic Club of New York, Druckenmiller said stimulus programs aren't building future growth, but rather are just giveaways to companies and business owners. His remarks are among the strongest comments yet by a Wall Street heavyweight on the bleak outlook facing U.S. investors. The economic damage has spurred the Federal Reserve to unveil a raft of emergency lending programs and Congress to unleash almost $3 trillion in stimulus. Mark Mills, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Mark, thank you. Downbeat comments from Fed officials are also weighing on sentiment. And Bloomberg's John Tucker joins us live with the details. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Karen. Central bank officials warn the partial shutdown of the U.S. economy risks massive bankruptcies. St. Louis Fed President Jim Bullard says the lockdown can't last more than 4 months without creating lasting scars.
You'll get business failures on a grand scale, and you'll be taking risk that you go into depression.
At the same time, Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester says if the virus isn't contained effectively this year, it isn't difficult to imagine a more pessimistic scenario. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
And John, up next, we hear from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell with investors on the outlook for fresh clues on policy. And here with more is Bloomberg economics correspondent Michael McKee.
How low U.S. interest rates can go is one of the issues Powell is expected to address. The Fed chairman has consistently rejected negative rates, a message echoed by many of his colleagues this week. Yet Fed funds traders are pricing in the possibility the central bank will cut its policy rate below zero. President Trump also weighed in, tweeting the country should receive the gift of negative rates. Powell likely will reiterate the central banker's arguments that negative rates don't accomplish much, penalize savers, and would harm money markets. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Michael, thank you. And Chairman Powell speaks at 9 a.m. Wall Street time. We will bring you his remarks live right here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P futures, little change. Dow futures up 21. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg. At 5:07 on Wall Street, we bring in Michael Barr for more on the coronavirus response. What else is going on around the world? Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. New York is seeing more drops in total coronavirus hospitalizations, but there were 195 new deaths reported yesterday. Governor Andrew Cuomo says, though, it is still trending down. Cuomo also says New York is investigating about 100 cases of what is believed to be a COVID-19 related inflammatory disease in children.
Less than 1 year old, predominantly 5 to 14, but we lost a young lady at 18 years old, and we have some cases up to 21 years old.
Cuomo also says regional teams will monitor key metrics as their areas start to loosen restrictions. He is working with New York's congressional delegation to push a bill that would prohibit companies from laying off workers if they receive government funding. There is a chance bars and restaurants in New York City will be allowed to have patrons dine on sidewalks and streets again. According to the Daily News, Department of Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg said it's so restaurants can space out and do social distancing. A trade organization representing producers and theater owners announced Broadway will remain dark during the summer because of the coronavirus. The Broadway League says theaters are now offering refunds and exchanges for tickets purchased for shows through September 6th. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says his state now leads the largest U.S. states in the number of COVID-19 cases per 100,000 people, even as it saw the fewest diagnoses in more than 6 weeks. Murphy says the state reported another 198 deaths Tuesday. He also ordered testing in nursing homes as the number of deaths there continue to rise.
The fatalities, which now stand at just under 5,000 connected to these facilities, continues to grow, although the rate has slowed. That's little solace, but that is a fact.
Murphy also says New Jersey will more than double the number of public health professionals tracing COVID-19 cases. Stay-at-home orders in California's Los Angeles County are said to be extended for the next 3 months, according to the public health director, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti.
As I've said a million times, we're not moving past COVID-19. We're learning to live with it. We're not going to go back to pre-COVID-19 life anytime soon or jump forward to post-COVID-19 time until there is a medicine or a vaccine that allows that.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. We're coming up to 5:10 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Sports Update as the sports world tries to get into post-COVID-19 life. Here's John Stashower.
Yeah, Nathan, now that we know what baseball's plan is for a return, what about the NBA? The belief is those details are coming in the next few weeks, and the feeling is that unlike MLB, where the players are hinting at a resistance for financial reasons, NBA players who've already been paid most of their salaries for the season overwhelmingly want to play. That was the consensus that came out of yesterday's call that included some of the NBA's biggest stars like LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kawhi Leonard. NBA owners had their own call with Commissioner Adam Silver. They are said to be encouraged about a return. And there was a call between MLB and the union reps yesterday. They did not get into the financial details that could be a roadblock for baseball's return. NFL teams would normally be holding off-season workouts now. Instead, new Giants coach Joe Judge has to settle for team-wide Zoom chats with his players.
Probably the best part of the day is when you can click on the Zoom and everyone has their, screens unmuted, and you just hear the guys talking across. And that's probably the best part is, it took about a week for everyone to get comfortable enough to do that. And, I think they kind of realized that, as coaches, we were laughing, listening to them talk, and then they got a little bit more comfortable and really started breaking it down. But it's fun seeing all the personalities really emerge.
New York and New Jersey, of course, having been hit so hard by the virus, there could be stay-at-home orders when training camp is supposed to start in July, so the Giants are considering moving their camp out of the area. John Stashauer, Bloomberg Sports. Nathan?
And, John, you could call this a pinch hit from the government. The manufacturer of Louisville Slugger bats says it was able to put 171 furloughed employees back on the payroll after getting a loan from the government's small business program. That bat factory had been idled for nearly 2 months. S&P futures up 3 points. Dow futures up 45. NASDAQ futures up 30. This is Bloomberg.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of BNY Mellon's Pershing explains.
As sophisticated investors demand more from their advisors, advisory firms, in turn, need to rely on their custodian to help them grow their complex businesses. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, supporting the rapid growth of RIAs is our number one priority. We understand what it means to deliver true value to our clients who are looking for a custodian that is aligned with their best interests and delivers high-value solutions, all in an open architecture environment with flexibility, choice, and transparency. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength, resiliency, and high-touch service that BNY Mellon Pershing provides. When you work with Pershing, we put your business first. Can your custodian say that?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Hey, y'all. Did somebody say just eat? Me. Get delivery like a G. See? Hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles. Thank you, my man. Justeat.
Somebody say just eat.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes 16+. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter-pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
At NatWest, we're putting our money where your business is. We've set aside £5 billion of working capital funding for our customers and have already lent over $3 billion to businesses like yours. So if you bank with NatWest and COVID-19 has affected your business, remember, every one of us is here to support you. Search NatWest Business Coronavirus.
Figures for RBS Group. Security may be required. Over 18s only. Subject to status. Business use only.
Television. Here's Sherry Ann.
Many schools across America and others around the world have announced they will be closed for the rest of the school year due to the coronavirus outbreak, leaving parents adjusting to a new normal for the next several weeks or months. So how can parents adjust? Joining us now is Stephanie Dua, co-founder and president of Homer, a Learn to Read app for young children. Stephanie, great to have you with us. So first of all, how has this coronavirus pandemic affected your business?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. So Homer, like many other ed tech companies, has seen an explosion in growth. We've seen 300% growth in our sales, and we're seeing even more in engagement. So our daily active, monthly active users are growing by the day. So it's a moment for us. We're a very mission-driven company, so we really see this as kind of our moment to help support parents.
It seems a lot of these education tools are now done online. Are there any concerns by parents or others about this amount of screen time that kids are spending on these devices?
Yeah, and it's been a long-standing debate. You know, the way we like to think of it is we're moving from is screen time good or bad to more like what does quality screen time look like, and we think of it as mindful media.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. There was some caution hanging over the markets this morning. European stocks are falling. U.S. stock index futures, though, they're now on the rise, and treasuries are climbing. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures, they're up 6 points now. Dow futures up 68. NASDAQ futures up 40. The DAX in Germany's down 1.6%. 10-year treasury up 430 seconds, yield 0.66%. The yield on the 2-year 0.16%. NYMEX crude oil is down 1.3% on 34 cents at $25.44 a barrel. COMEX gold is little change, down 80 cents at $17.06.10 an ounce. The euro 1.0835 against the dollar. British pound 1.2275 and the yen 107.04. Tencent reported net income in the first quarter that beat the highest estimate of analysts we surveyed. Revenue also beat. Today we're watching for the producer price index at 8:30 Wall Street time, and Cisco Systems is among other companies scheduled to report earnings today. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has unveiled a more than $3 trillion new coronavirus aid package. Pelosi says it would provide nearly $1 trillion for states, cities, and tribal governments to avert layoffs and another $200 billion in hazard pay for essential workers. A House vote is expected Friday, but Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is cautioning his colleagues not to go so fast. A key panel from the Democratic National Committee voted to allow delegates to cast their votes remotely for the party's presidential nominee in response to the coronavirus pandemic. A resolution adopted by the Rules and Bylaws Committee would eliminate the need for participants to attend the August convention in person. The resolution will have to be approved by the full DNC. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thanks. It's 5:19 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak, and we're joined now by Andrea Ciccione, head of strategy at TS Lombard. Good to have you with us this morning, Andrea. We saw stocks, of course, drop yesterday after that warning from Dr. Anthony Fauci on Capitol Hill. Where do you see markets going from here? Had investors been getting a little too optimistic about the prospects of reopening and what it could mean for the economy?
I think the bottom line is that the investors are underestimating how prolonged and how weak aggregate demand is going to be for the foreseeable future. This is going to be a long recovery. It will take time. The reopenings, of course, will remove all of the uncertainty around the lockdowns and will bring back some demand, but demand will not be going back to where it was before the crisis started anytime soon.
What do you think will need to be enacted to bring demand back to levels that we've been used to in the past? I mean, it does seem as though it could take quite a long time for us to get to that point, or am I wrong?
No, it will take time, and at the moment there's nothing on the horizon to suggest that demand can go back to where it was in any shape or form. Of course, a vaccine would take us there, but even if one were discovered tomorrow, it will take time to deploy that to a broad part of the population that would allow us to go back to our usual habits of, dining out and going to events where big crowds congregate. But absent that, of course, people will start going to restaurants again. People will start, going on holiday again and taking airplanes. But of course, there will be social distancing measures that will constrain the amount of demand that can be for such services. So that's going to be with us for the foreseeable future, absent a vaccine discovery and a quick implementation.
So does that mean that we're just going to be in a period of consolidation for the foreseeable future?
Well, I think for the markets, what matters is that this recession has been one that's happened back to front. Normally, recessions happens because of liquidity conditions or financial conditions, and monetary policy gets too tight, the economy slows down, markets start to roll over very gradually at first, and then there is a capitulation phase, which normally signals the end of a bear market. What's happened in this crisis is exactly the opposite. There was a sudden stop in the economy. There was something that looked a lot like a capitulation phase very early on, caused by the lockdowns and the collapse in economic activity. And I think many investors believe that we've seen the bottom for the market, because that looked a lot like the capitulation stage of a regular bear market. But the reality is that isn't the capitulation stage. I think investors need to realize that there is still a recession that we have to go through, and probably the real bear market, the one that comes after the big sell-off and the initial rebound, is only just getting started. So whether the market makes new lows or not remains to be seen. We think it will eventually, but definitely we are going to be in a bear market for a while longer.
Do you think we'll get clearer signals on the monetary policy front when Chairman Powell speaks later this morning? Do you think he'll give some solid clues?
I think the Fed and central banks around the world have been very clear on this. And probably investors haven't been listening to the message that central banks have been sending out very carefully. And that is that basically the economy is going to remain on the back foot for a long time, that we are entering a period of a very long period of very easy monetary policy, to be sure, but that's in response of what central banks expect to be a very weak economy. And clearly equity markets particularly, but to some extent other risk asset markets as well, such as credit, they're not fully pricing the extent of economic damage that this virus, this situation will continue to make for a few more quarters, if not for a couple of years.
All right, Andrea, thanks for this. Really appreciate you joining us this morning. Andrea Ciccione is head of strategy at TS Lombard. Karen, how are markets looking right now?
Well, S&P futures are gaining. They're up 8 points now. They seem to be strengthening. Dow futures up 83 and NASDAQ futures up 42 now. The DAX in Germany still lower, down 1.6% this morning. 10-year Treasury up 4/32, yield 0.66%. And the yield on the 2-year, 0.16%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.7%. It's down 44 cents at $25.35 a barrel. And COMEX gold is little change, down $1.10 at $17.0570 an ounce. The euro, 1.0842 against the dollar. British pound, 1.2280. And the yen at 107.03. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
Traders remain cautious on this Wednesday, with U.S. stock futures edging higher at last check. Yesterday on Wall Street, the market fell about 2% across the board. For the Dow, it meant a loss of 457 points after Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, warned of more coming suffering, death, and damage to the economy if local authorities reopen their communities too aggressively, following shutdowns put in place because of the coronavirus pandemic. Uber's offer to buy Grubhub is not sitting well with officials in Washington and major cities moving to limit the fees charged to restaurants and regulate their treatment of workers. San Francisco and Seattle officials recently enacted limits on delivery fees. New York is set to vote today on a measure. Los Angeles, Boston, and Chicago are among other cities considering similar moves. And analysts say that a deal between Uber and Grubhub would likely face antitrust scrutiny. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize a half-price dream holiday, wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free, wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the U-Switch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter-pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores online, subject to availability.
TSB believe in people helping people. That's why they've created TSB Smart Agent, a new secure way for TSB to answer your personal and business banking questions online. Find out more at tsb.co.uk. Automated service available 24/7. TSB partners available 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Sports and festivals on hold. Weddings and christenings on hold. Marathons on hold. But not everything is on hold.
My name's Lynn, and I have terminal cancer. I don't know how many weeks I have left.
In this time of national emergency, Marie Curie nurses and hospices are needed more than ever. We can only care for dying people like Lynn if you donate. Visit mariecurie.org.uk to donate to our emergency appeal.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and we are just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. futures are higher this morning after yesterday's 2% decline for the S&P 500. European equities are falling, with the Stock 600 down 1.6%. Mona Mahajan is a U.S. investment strategist at Allianz Global Investors.
You do have cash on the sidelines. I do think you will see, if we start seeing better signs, more cash come off the sidelines back into the marketplace. But on the other hand, if we look through the next few months and the data, especially on the health side, starts tracking worse, you could see the opposite trend emerging.
And we're also seeing volatility back on the rise, with the VIX currently at 32.31.
As states across the country get back to work, President Trump's top disease expert warns on the risk of new coronavirus outbreaks. Dr. Anthony Fauci says ignoring federal guidelines for reopening could lead to a sharp rise in infections.
There is a real risk that you will trigger an outbreak that you may not be able to control, which in fact, paradoxically, will set you back. Not only leading to some suffering and death that could be avoided, but could even set you back on the road to trying to get economic recovery.
Fauci says testing remains a crucial element in the fight to contain the virus.
Those comments from Dr. Fauci are weighing on sentiment, along with downbeat remarks from Fed officials. Bloomberg's John Tucker joins us live with the details. Good morning, John.
And Karen, St. Louis Fed President Jim Bullard warns that if shutdowns last more than 4 months, we risk falling into a depression. The Cleveland Fed President, Loretta Mester, adds if the virus isn't contained effectively this year, it isn't difficult to imagine a more pessimistic scenario. Today, we're going to hear from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, with investors on the lookout for fresh clues on policy. He speaks at 9 a.m. Wall Street time, or bring that to you live right here on Bloomberg Radio. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, John, thanks. In Washington, House Democrats are unveiling a $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. The proposal is full of progressive priorities, unlikely to gain approval in the Senate, but it could serve as an opening bid in negotiations with the White House.
Meantime, Senate Republicans are pushing to impose sanctions on China if the government does not cooperate with an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. It's one of 3 current proposals targeting China, and the latest move is likely to escalate tensions with Beijing. Futures this morning, again, they're on the rise. S&P futures up 3 points. Dow futures up 44. NASDAQ futures up 26. The DAX in Germany is down 1.7%, and the 10-year Treasury up 5/32, yield 0.65%. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thank you. It's 5:33 on Wall Street, and we bring back Michael Barr for more of what's going on around the world. Michael?
Thank you very much, Nathan. New York is seeing more drops in total coronavirus hospitalizations and intubation rates, but also seeing 195 new deaths. Governor Andrew Cuomo says that number is still a bit high than the day before, but it is still trending down.
Never forget what we did here, what New Yorkers did by their actions and their sacrifice. They saved lives. They saved hundreds of thousands of lives, because that projection of what the virus was supposed to do was much, much worse than what it wound up doing. So we're making real progress. There's no doubt.
The governor also said New York needs $61 billion in federal assistance, criticizing Congress for funding big businesses rather than state and local governments. The MTA says it needs $3.9 billion more in aid to reopen safely. A major part of the $3 trillion stimulus package in Congress is set aside for transportation in the U.S. Without the additional funding, transit agency officials say it will be a challenge for states to reopen. The coronavirus continues to take lives in New Jersey. Governor Phil Murphy.
Today we report another 198 fatalities of losses of blessed souls from COVID-19 complications. Our statewide total now stands at 9,508.
Governor Murphy also says with 17 new cases for every 100,000 residents, the state has a higher rate of infection than New York, California, or Texas. In Connecticut, there were 33 new COVID-19 deaths. California Governor Gavin Newsom says the state is making progress in testing. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
Newsom says not enough progress, but that...
The good news is we are now going to increase additional sites with our pharmacies in the state of California, and we hope to start seeing those pop up very, very soon.
He says not every pharmacy will want to do them. He also says statewide guidelines are now posted for opening up dine-in restaurants, for malls and for curbside pickup. For restaurants, he says the key will be spacing. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
A key panel of the Democratic National Committee voted to allow delegates to cast their votes remotely for the party's presidential nominee. It is the first step toward making the party's convention at least partially a virtual event in response to the coronavirus pandemic. The event is scheduled to begin on August 17th in Milwaukee. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, Michael, thanks. It's almost 5:36 on Wall Street. Let's get the Bloomberg Sports Update now with John Stashower.
All right, Nathan. Now that Major League Baseball has revealed its plan for a shortened season with games at teams' empty stadiums, the question is if the players will go along with the plan. Health concerns and financial concerns. The owners propose a 50-50 split of revenue. Sharing revenue is considered to go hand in hand with a salary cap. Baseball is the one sport that doesn't have that. There was a strike in a lost World Series in 1994 over the institution of a cap. The former Yankee Mark Teixeira says the players should accept this offer, and the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, blasted players, saying the country needs to see sports, and quibbling over money at a time when so many have died is not the right thing to do. There have only been 23 perfect games thrown in baseball history. There should be 24. 10 years ago, Armando Galarraga, the Detroit Tigers, seemingly got the final out at first base, but the umpire, Jim Joyce, called the runner safe. Later admitted he blew the call. There was no replay then. Galarraga and Joyce both feel baseball should go back now and credit him with having thrown a perfect game. The Robert Kraft Super Bowl 51 ring that the Patriots owner is auctioning off for charity is now going for over $1 million, and bidding will continue for another week. May 13th, this date in New York sports history. 1976, the New York Nets, who played on Long Island, led by Julius Erving, came from 22 points down, beat the Denver Nuggets, won the ABA championship. It was the last ABA game ever played. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Nathan?
All right, John, thanks. It's 5:37 on Wall Street. Time for the Tri-State Business Report. Here's Bloomberg's Ed Corey.
The Broadway League has announced summer cancellations. It says theaters will offer refunds and exchanges for performances through September 6th. Ticket holders will get an email from their point of purchase with more information. A date for the resumption of performances has yet to be determined. NASDAQ's return to the office will probably be voluntary for the foreseeable future. The exchange operator surveyed employees about returning to work. The vast majority say they'd prefer to keep working from home and wait to see how the recovery from the coronavirus pandemic progresses. New Jersey regulators are telling insurance companies they have to cut premiums for motorists and other policyholders. Those cuts have to be retroactive for 2 months. The order's tied to the lower risk of traffic accidents and other payouts amid the slowdown caused by the coronavirus. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey.
Thanks, Ed. It's 5:38 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Radio is on the air from San Francisco to New York, London to Hong Kong. Let's check in with our global news team for some of the top stories heard on our 300 affiliate radio stations around the world.
I'm Jeff Bellinger, and on Kogo in San Diego, I'm reporting Tesla gets conditional approval to restart production at its only U.S. car plant in California.
I'm Gina Cervetti, and for WBBM in Chicago, I'm reporting that United Airlines has secured $5 billion in aid from a federal stimulus program aimed at helping carriers make payroll.
I'm Roger Hearing. On Bloomberg DAB Digital Radio in London, we're reporting on the tentative reopening of England's economy as UK GDP figures show a dramatic first quarter drop.
I'm Courtney Donahoe on KTRH in Houston. The International Energy Agency sees oil use below pre-virus levels for at least a year.
I'm Ed Corey on WWJ in Detroit. I'm reporting Hertz has canceled most of its new car orders.
Those are some of the stories our 2,700 Bloomberg journalists and analysts are working on this morning around the world. It's 5:39 on Wall Street, and the latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is online now with the cover on Instacart's frantic push to deliver groceries in the age of COVID-19. Terminal customers can receive a complimentary subscription at MAG Go and listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly right here on Bloomberg Radio, or watch it on YouTube weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. Wall Street time. Get global business, finance, and tech news on your TV, computer, or mobile device. Just visit youtube.com and search Bloomberg Global News. Now, some other stories we're following. Apple plans to soon start returning more employees to offices around the world. Bloomberg News has learned the process will take several months. Meanwhile, Facebook and Alphabet say staff can work from home through this year. Twitter is taking it a step further, telling employees they can work from home forever. Amazon says the 1 and 2 day delivery times should gradually return in coming weeks. The online retailer is catching up from a demand surge tied to the coronavirus outbreak. The company's lifted restrictions on the amount of inventory its suppliers can send to warehouses and is shortening delivery times. And Nissan plans to cut about $2.8 billion in annual fixed costs. The Japanese automaker is also booking restructuring charges. Sources say they're likely part of a 3-year plan to be unveiled May 28th. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
For the Jewish Communal Fund, Noel Spiegel, former senior partner with Deloitte & Touche and past JCF president, discusses the advantages of a donor-advised fund over a private foundation.
There's a lot involved in having a private foundation. You need to engage attorneys, you need to engage accountants, file tax returns. At JCF, all of that is done for you. You don't have to get involved in anything other than making your contribution to your fund and then determining which grants that you want to make.
A JCF fund may be opened with a minimum $5,000 contribution of cash or appreciated securities and can be used as an alternative to or together with a private foundation.
If you have a foundation, you have to list all of the contributions that you made. Potentially anybody, because the information is public, can find out exactly which organizations a foundation has made charitable contributions to.
Let JCF simplify your philanthropy and protect your privacy. Learn more about JCF's private client group at jcfny.org.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
This is your Bloom.
Did somebody say just eat?
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. J-U-S-T-E-A-T.
Somebody say just eat.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Get your cook on with Asda with Butcher Selection quarter pounder beef burgers. Get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets. Get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores online, subject to availability.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
Please be wary of text messages containing links. They may appear to be from legitimate senders like the government, a bank or a delivery company, but never enter your online banking information or personal details after clicking on a link.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
On air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Special report, coronavirus update. The nation's top infectious disease expert warns Congress about the consequences of reopening the country too soon.
Testifying before the Senate Health Committee via video, Dr. Anthony Fauci said there is a real danger to consider.
My concern is that we will start to see little spikes that might turn into outbreaks.
Fauci and other health experts who are members of the White House Coronavirus Task Force testified remotely after coming in contact with at least one person who tested positive for the coronavirus. The testimony comes as the U.S. has had 1.3 million confirmed cases of coronavirus. Linda Kenyon, Washington.
Potential virus spread moved the DNC to vote to grant convention organizers in Milwaukee the authority to design a virtual Democratic presidential convention so that delegates do not have to attend in person. On Wall Street, Dow futures are higher. I'm John Trout.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Caution continues to hang over markets with European stocks dropping in the wake of a late decline on Wall Street. U.S. stock index futures are edging higher, though. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. Right now, S&P futures are up about 9.5 points. Dow futures up 93. NASDAQ futures up 46. The DAX in Germany is down 1.5%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32. Yield 0.66%. Yield on the 2-year 0.16%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.9% or 24 cents at $25.54 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.1% on $1.60 at $17.0530 an ounce. The euro 1.0841 against the dollar. The yen is at 107.06. And 10-cent reported net income in the first quarter that beat the highest estimate of analysts we surveyed. Revenue also beat. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, they've already spent $3 trillion on coronavirus relief. Now House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is requesting $3 trillion more, saying what they've done isn't enough. Speaker Pelosi called the bill the HEROES Act. It would give state and local governments trillions to make sure they can keep paying essential workers. Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell and the president want to pause more spending. A day after the president said we prevailed in expanding coronavirus testing, enough to start reopening the U.S. economy, Trump's top health experts offered a more cautionary assessment as they warned about the perils of moving too quickly. Robert Redfield, director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, said we're not out of the woods yet. Redfield spoke at a Senate Health Committee hearing warning that Americans need to stay vigilant with social distancing. While many areas of the country are lifting stay-at-home orders this week, California's Los Angeles County won't be doing that anytime soon. Public Health Director Dr. Barbara Ferrer says stay-at-home orders will likely be in place for at least 3 more months. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John.
Michael, thank you. It is now 5:49 on Wall Street. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. I'm John Tucker. Well, there's a new push to determine exactly who's most vulnerable to the coronavirus symptoms and why. To answer those questions, the UK's National Health Service plans to sequence genomes from COVID-19 patients. And joining us now with more on the study is Bloomberg's Corinne Gretler, and she's in Zurich this morning. Thanks for being with us. Can you tell us how exactly this is going to work?
Hi, John. Yes, of course. So the researchers will study the DNA of about 35,000 patients in the UK, and that's about 20,000 from patients who were severely ill, so that means they are or have been in intensive care, and about 15,000 from patients who have mild to moderate symptoms. The DNA will be sequenced into separate pieces, and that's how they can study the genes. Once they have that, they can then compare them to the various reactions to the infection and see if there is a common link or if there is a puzzle piece that helps explain these various reactions to the infection.
Now, is it clear that how a person responds to the disease has actually a genetic component?
Well, that's what they're trying to figure out. We know that some people are at higher risk of a severe infection. For example, those suffering from diabetes or other pre-existing diseases. And since there's such a wide range of reactions to COVID-19, this will help figure out the details. For instance, it's also interesting that children and young adults have been relatively unaffected by the pandemic, but then there are some who've had severe illnesses. This will hopefully try to clear that up.
Now, do the researchers hope to develop some sort of therapies as a result of this study? Can we expect some new drugs maybe as a result of this?
Yes. So more insight from a genome perspective can help pinpoint why there's such a wide range of reactions. And then that will also help with the discovery of new treatments or accelerate treatments that are currently in clinical trials that we're still waiting for. In the best case scenarios, it may even help prevent future outbreaks.
Now, how long before they have some answers?
So, yeah, well, these kinds of genomic studies need a very, very large number of participants. So the organizers aim to include every single COVID-19 patient admitted to intensive care in the UK. And then also those who've recovered can volunteer to take part in the study. But, how long before we have some answers will depend on how fast, how many people will be willing to support the study.
Are there any private companies behind this research? We mentioned the UK authorities, but who else?
Well, there's the equipment maker Illumina in the U.S., and then there are various genome sequencing consortiums, doctors, and scientists who have been looking into critical illness.
Corinne, thanks a lot. We appreciate it. Bloomberg's Corinne Gretler joining us from Zurich this morning. I'm John Tucker. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak. Karen.
John, thank you. It is 5:53 on Wall Street. It is time for the Bloomberg Law Report. It is brought to you by American Arbitration Association. International trade or business dispute resolved faster with the International Center for Dispute Resolution, the leader in alternative dispute resolution around the world, ICDR.org. Let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning with Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
Gilead Sciences is licensing its remdesivir, a potential COVID-19 treatment, to 5 generic drug makers based in India and Pakistan. Deals will increase the global supply of the medication. A top enforcement official at the Securities and Exchange Commission says more trading suspensions are likely over false or misleading statements regarding the coronavirus. And states have seen a drop in revenue since the start of the pandemic, but sales and use taxes from e-commerce transactions have increased because people stuck at home are ordering more.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need, all on one legal research platform, including guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now another legal story. We're watching oral arguments at the Supreme Court over President Trump's bid to keep his financial records secret. Justices heard a pair of cases yesterday that could have sweeping constitutional significance and affect the November election. For more on the arguments, Bloomberg's June Grasso speaks to former federal prosecutor and current Cardozo Law School professor Jessica Roth.
Did it seem to you as if the subpoena from the New York prosecutor was a stronger case in many respects and that the justices quibbled less about it than the congressional subpoenas?
It did seem like a more streamlined case, the second case. I don't know if there were actually fewer questions, but the issues seemed to be simpler in the second case. And one important distinction in the second case as well was the willingness of the attorney who was representing the Manhattan District Attorney to concede limits on the authority of the agency that he was representing with respect to its investigative authority when investigating matters pertaining to a sitting president. And so one of the things that I think frustrated the justices in the first case, which involved Congress, was that the attorney representing the House of Representatives was really reluctant to concede any limiting principle on what it was that Congress had the authority to investigate, including with respect to a president. So the fact that the lawyer in the second case for the Manhattan DA was in a sense more modest about the assertion of authority in some ways allowed the justices to sort of focus in on the narrow issues presented and seeming to be less concerned about setting out limits.
We also heard the term now, temporary presidential immunity. Jay Sekulow, President Trump's attorney, said that the president should have complete presidential immunity while he's in office. Do you think any of the justices bought that broad argument?
I don't know how far the justices will go in issuing their opinion. They may find that it is not necessary to go that far. Certainly, that is a broad and unprecedented legal claim. The notion that a subpoena couldn't be issued to a third party for records that pertain to the president, that would be covered by this assertion of presidential temporary immunity. I mean, that is such a broad and sweeping claim. It's certainly possible that some of the justices would adopt it, but it seems less likely than that they would find a way to rule on a narrower basis. I thought that the lawyer for the New York District Attorney's Office just did a very good job of explaining what's at stake if the court were to hold for the president on that issue. He explained, not only would the president potentially be immune actually forever because the statute of limitations might run on a crime that had been committed while the president was in office, but also other parties who might have been involved in committing crimes effectively would have absolute immunity.
And that's Cardozo Law Professor Jessica Roth speaking with Bloomberg's June Grasso. Catch more of that interview plus analysis of the latest legal news by subscribing to the Bloomberg Law Podcast or downloading the show at Bloomberg.com/podcast. And attorneys can find exceptional legal research and business development tools at BloombergLaw.com. Futures this morning on the rise. S&P futures, they're up about 15 points. Dow futures up 138 and NASDAQ futures up 62. The 10-year Treasury up 2/32, yield 0.66%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.16%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.7% or 17 cents at $25.61 a barrel. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg.
Sick of this. We're gonna do this doggy style.
Did somebody say just eat?
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Tacos to the chateau. Please, did somebody say
just eat?
Private jetting in the night sky. My man hand glide by with my fried rice. Right? What could you not love? Bought a slice on the side of the hot tub. Ooh, what you gon' do, boo? Chocolate fondue right on cue. Even dipping in the sea. I see food, seafood sees me. JUSTEAT.
Somebody say just eat.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
World 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. Coming up this hour,
House Democrats unveil a new $3 trillion coronavirus relief package.
Senate Republicans push for sanctions on China tied to the outbreak.
Stocks slide as Anthony Fauci warns on the risk of new infections.
And a renowned hedge fund manager calls a V-shaped recovery a fantasy.
Governor Murphy says New Jersey's ratio leads big U.S. states in COVID-19 cases, plus Broadway will remain closed through the summer. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. Baseball has its plan for a return. Now we'll see if the players will go along with it. NBA players overwhelmingly say they want to return.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak is brought to you by Interactive Brokers. They charge margin loan rates from as low as 0.75% to 1.55%. Rates subject to change. Restrictions apply. Learn more at ibkr.com/compare.
And U.S. futures are on the rise after yesterday's 2% decline for the S&P 500. We're coming up to 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 14 points, Dow futures up 139, NASDAQ futures up 61. The DAX in Germany is down 1 1/3%, CAC in Paris down 1.6%, and the FTSE 100 is down 1%. Nikkei 225 in Japan fell 0.5%, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong was down 0.25%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 0.66%. The yield on the 2-year 0.16%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.7% or 18 cents at $25.60 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.1% on $1.50 at $17.0530 an ounce. The euro 1.0842 against the dollar. The yen is at 107.08. Nathan.
Well, Karen, we begin this morning in Washington, where House Democrats are unveiling a $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the measure combines aid for local governments with expanded unemployment insurance and cash payments to consumers.
We must put more money in the pockets of the American people. This is not only necessary for their survival, but it is also a stimulus to the economy.
The proposal is full of progressive priorities that are unlikely to gain approval in the Senate, but it could serve as an opening bid in negotiations with the White House.
Meantime, Senate Republicans are pushing to impose sanctions on China if the government does not cooperate with an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. The move is likely to escalate tensions with Beijing. Here with more is Bloomberg's Derek Walbank in Singapore.
This bill is a very clear measure to try and escalate pressure on China to disclose more information than U.S. lawmakers believe that China is willing to do right now. You've also seen similar pressure tactics with a Senate-passed measure seeking to get Taiwan to regain WHO status. That was another sort of thing where lawmakers are trying to increase pressure on China.
The Senate's also moving on a third measure targeting Beijing. It's taking up a bill to impose sanctions on Chinese officials tied to human rights abuses against Muslim minorities.
Well, as states reopen across the country, President Trump's top disease expert is warning about the risk of new outbreaks.
My concern is that we will start to see little spikes that might turn into outbreaks.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says ignoring federal guidelines for reopening could lead to a sharp rise in infections.
There is a real risk that you will trigger an outbreak that you may not be able to control, which in fact, paradoxically, will set you back, not only leading to some suffering and death that could be avoided, but could even set you back on the road to trying to get economic recovery.
Fauci warns we could also see a fresh outbreak in the fall. He says testing remains a crucial element in the fight to contain the virus.
The S&P 500 shed more than 2% following that testimony as concerns surface about the push to get America back to work. Mona Mahajan is U.S. investment strategist at Allianz Global Investors.
In just 6.5 weeks, we've climbed back nearly 30%. So even in a more normal time without the overhang of a pandemic, we would certainly expect a period of consolidation after that type of move. Perhaps we're starting to see that here. Certainly that was exacerbated by the comments we heard from Dr. Fauci, which were not all that encouraging in terms of what may happen as we begin this reopening process.
Right now, S&P futures, they're up about 20 points, and we're seeing volatility back on the rise. The VIX currently at 31.05.
Well, sobering comments from Stan Druckenmiller are also weighing on sentiment. The renowned hedge fund manager calls the prospect for a V-shaped recovery a fantasy, and he says the risk-reward calculation for equities is the worst he's ever seen. Here with more is Bloomberg's Mark Mills.
Speaking during a webcast held by the Economic Club of New York, Druckenmiller said stimulus programs aren't building future growth, but rather are just giveaways to companies and business owners. His remarks are among the strongest comments yet by a Wall Street heavyweight on the bleak outlook facing U.S. investors. The economic damage has spurred the Federal Reserve to unveil a raft of emergency lending programs and Congress to unleash almost $3 trillion in stimulus. Mark Mills, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Mark, thank you. Downbeat comments from Fed officials are also weighing on sentiment. Bloomberg's John Tucker joins us live with the details. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Central bank officials warn the partial shutdown of the U.S. economy risks massive bankruptcies. St. Louis Fed President Jim Bullard says the lockdown can't last more than 4 months without creating lasting scars.
You'll get business failures on a grand scale, and you'll be taking risks that you go into depression.
At the same time, Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester says if the virus isn't contained effectively this year, it isn't difficult to imagine a more pessimistic scenario. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, John, thanks. Up next, we hear from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell with investors on the lookout for fresh clues on policy. Here with more is Bloomberg economics correspondent Michael McKee.
How low U.S. interest rates can go is one of the issues Powell is expected to address. The Fed chairman has consistently rejected negative rates, a message echoed by many of his colleagues this week. Yet Fed funds traders are pricing in the possibility the central bank will cut its policy rate below zero. President Trump also weighed in, tweeting the country should receive the gift of negative rates. Powell likely will reiterate the central banker's arguments that negative rates don't accomplish much, penalize savers, and would harm money markets. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Michael, thanks. Chairman Powell speaks at 9 a.m. Wall Street time. We'll bring his comments to you live right here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P futures moving up, higher by 18 points now. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg. And it's 6:07 on Wall Street. Michael Barr is here with more on the local and global response to COVID-19. Michael?
Thank you very much, Nathan. New York is seeing more drops in total coronavirus hospitalizations, but there were 195 new deaths reported yesterday. Governor Andrew Cuomo says, though, it is still trending down. Cuomo also says the state is investigating cases of what is believed to be a COVID-19 related inflammatory disease in children.
Less than 1 year old, predominantly 5 to 14, but we lost a young lady at 18 years old, and we have some cases up to 21 years old.
Cuomo also says regional teams will monitor key metrics as their areas start to loosen restrictions. There is a chance bars and restaurants in New York City will be allowed to have patrons dine on sidewalks and streets again. According to the Daily News, Department of Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg said it's so restaurants can space out and do social distancing. A trade organization representing producers and theater owners announced Broadway will remain dark during the summer because of the coronavirus. The Broadway League says theaters are now offering refunds and exchanges for tickets purchased for shows through September 6th. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says his state now leads New York, California, and Texas in the number of COVID-19 cases per 100,000 people, even as it saw the fewest diagnoses in more than 6 weeks. The state reported another 198 deaths Tuesday. Murphy also ordered testing at nursing homes as the number of deaths there continued to rise.
The fatalities, which now stand at just under 5,000 connected to these facilities, continues to grow, although the rate has slowed. That's little solace, but that is a fact.
He also says New Jersey will more than double the number of public health professionals tracing COVID-19 cases. In Connecticut, there were 33 new COVID-19 deaths. Governor Ned Lamont will be on Bloomberg TV at noon. Stay-at-home orders in California's Los Angeles County are said to be extended for the next 3 months, according to the public health director, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti.
As I've said a million times, we're not moving past COVID-19. We're learning to live with it. We're not going to go back to pre-COVID-19 life anytime soon or jump forward to post-COVID-19 time until there is a medicine or a vaccine that allows that.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, Michael, thanks. It's just before 6:10 on Wall Street. Time to get the Bloomberg Sports Update now. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, now that we know what baseball's plan is for a return, what about the NBA? The belief is those details are coming in the next few weeks, and the feeling is that unlike MLB, where the players are hinting at a resistance for financial reasons, NBA players who've already been paid most of their salaries for the season want to play. That was the consensus that came out of yesterday's call that included some of the NBA's biggest stars like LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kawhi Leonard. There was also a conversation between NBA owners and the commissioner, Adam Silver, and the owners were said to be encouraged about a return. MLB and union reps spoke yesterday, did not get into the financial details that could be a roadblock to baseball's return. NFL teams would normally be holding off-season workouts now. Instead, new Giants coach Joe Judge has to settle for team-wide Zoom chats with his players.
Probably the best part of the day is when you can click on the Zoom and everyone has their screens unmuted, and you just hear the guys talking across. And that's probably the best part is, it took about a week for everyone to get comfortable enough to do that. And, I think they kind of realized that, as coaches, we were laughing, listening to them talk, and then they got a little bit more comfortable and really started breaking it down. But it's fun seeing all the personalities really emerge.
With New York and New Jersey, of course, having been hit so hard by the virus, there could be stay-at-home orders when training camp is supposed to start in July. So the Giants have begun to look at other sites, considering moving their camp out of the New York area. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Nathan.
Hey, John, you could call this a pinch hit from the government. The manufacturer of Louisville Slugger bats says it was able to put 171 furloughed employees back on the payroll thanks to a government small business loan. The bat factory had been idled nearly 2 months. The company says that cash infusion was instrumental in restoring about 90% of its workforce to the payroll last week. S&P futures higher by 18 points. Dow futures up 170 now. NASDAQ futures a gain of 71 points. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. The university helped biomedical engineering professor Tara Alvarez launch a startup that may revolutionize vision therapy.
Our startup through NJIT is called Ocular Motor Technology. We create virtual reality vision therapy in a head-mounted display. So it's gaming, and basically we're sugarcoating the therapy so that children and young adolescents don't even realize they're doing therapy. To accomplish this, we need biomedical engineers, which are here on NJIT campus, computer scientists, artists, people that are into story development, and then we're collaborating with a lot of the large pediatric medical centers. This idea of a startup culture is extremely important to not just NJIT and the National Science Foundation, but also to the U.S. as a societal whole.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Not completing high school is more.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
Please be vigilant for suspicious calls that appear to be from your bank, the police, or the government. Remember, neither Santander, the police, or any other organisation will ask you to move or withdraw money for security reasons.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Helen is dreaming of fighting a flock of 40-foot flamingos. But in reality, she's helping fight COVID-19 in her sleep. Like thousands of others, she's joined the Dream Team. By using the Dream Lab app, they're helping scientists speed up the search for potential treatments.
I'll fight you.
Keep fighting, Helen. Search Vodafone Dream Lab and join the Dream Team tonight.
Dream Lab app is owned by Vodafone Foundation, an independent charity. Registration number 1089625. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/dreamlab.
We're all in uncharted territory looking for ways to support our communities. At Dell Technologies, we're making sure small businesses have the right tech solutions. Dell Technologies advisors are here for you, helping small businesses stay connected and productive while working remotely with Windows 10 Pro and Microsoft Teams. We're standing by you every step of the way. Call us today on 0800 169 1745. That's 0800 169 1745.
Here's Heidi Stroud-Watts.
Australian Finance Minister Matthias Cormann joins us now from Canberra. Are you increasingly concerned about this war of words now spilling over to a war of trade between Canberra and Beijing? Is it just too coincidental to ignore?
We have a very important bilateral relationship with China. It's a relationship which benefits both of us, in particular in an economic sense. It is a process that started some 18 months ago under the World Trade Organization framework. Countries all around the world that are members of that organization are able to pursue investigations into issues where they believe that there are some breaches of relevant trade rules. We don't believe there have been any breaches, and we're engaging in that process in the appropriate way. We don't believe there's been any dumping or any inappropriate subsidies, and we're working our way through that in an appropriate fashion. In relation to beef, again, there is an allegation of some technical breaches, and we're working our way through that. Look, in the end, in a relationship in any relationship, from time to time there will be disagreements on certain issues, and we pursue those constructively and pragmatically and with a view to resolve them in the most sensible fashion possible.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Caution continues to hang over the markets, with European stocks dropping in the wake of a late-day decline on Wall Street. Meanwhile, U.S. stock index futures are edging higher this morning. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up about 17 points. Dow futures up 100 to 61. NASDAQ futures up 68. The DAX in Germany's down 1.3%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 0.66%. Yield on the 2-year 0.15%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.7% or 19 cents at $25.59 a barrel. COMEX gold is little changed, up 90 cents at $17.0770 an ounce. The euro 1.0851 against the dollar. British pound 1.2299. And the yen's at 107.05. And Fiat Chrysler planning to repay part of a multi-billion euro credit facility via a new bond sale of up to $1.1 billion, and a move that will signal the debt market's level of confidence in the Italian-American car maker. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has unveiled a more than $3 trillion new coronavirus aid package. Pelosi said it would provide nearly $1 trillion for states, cities, and tribal governments to avert layoffs, and another $200 billion in hazard pay for essential workers. A House vote is expected Friday. Chinese and Iranian hackers are said to be aggressively targeting U.S. universities, pharmaceuticals, and other healthcare firms. According to the Wall Street Journal, a U.S. official says it could be hampering their efforts to find a vaccine to counter the coronavirus pandemic. A key panel of the Democratic National Committee voted to allow delegates to cast their votes remotely for the party's presidential nominee in response to the pandemic. A resolution adopted by the Rules and Bylaws Committee would eliminate the need for participants to attend the August convention in person. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thank you. It is 6:19 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. The nation's top government scientists are warning about the risks of reopening too quickly without adequate testing for the coronavirus. So let's get more now about where we are on testing and understanding this disease. Andy Pekos is back with us this morning, professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Always good getting your perspective, Dr. Pekos. So what are we learning so far about the immune response to the coronavirus? There's been a lot of talk about whether we can build herd immunity to it. Do we know that at this point?
So, studies are starting to roll in. It looks like people who are infected with the virus that causes COVID-19 do generate an antibody response in their blood, and in those antibodies there are these antibodies that we think are the protective ones, the one that will keep you from getting reinfected. So the initial results are looking very promising. What we need to really understand now is how long these responses last. If they last for 6 months, 12 months, then we'll be in a very different situation than if they start fading away within 2 or 3 months. And unfortunately, those studies are just going to take some time because we have to wait for individuals to get further and further away from their infection.
So while we're waiting for those results to come in, as you say, they do take months. Is it possible to reopen safely, as many states are trying to do, taking the first steps to do now?
I think it is. The question becomes the timing of when you start to do the reopening. Taiwan is a great example of a country that very early on instituted very strict testing and very strict contact tracing, meaning if you find an infected individual, you can then identify the people that they've come in contact and really try to put those individuals under quarantine to limit the spread of the infection. We have to turn our resources from just checking sick people right now to making sure that we have enough resources to find individuals and their contacts and really limit the infection before we can really safely start to significantly open up the economy again.
Are we on a path to have those resources given the fact that we didn't have early testing and contact tracing from the get-go?
We would like to see less cases happening right now because the fewer cases that we're seeing, the more resources then get freed up to be able to do the contact tracing and other testing that's needed to open up the economy. So we'd like to see fewer cases, freeing up those resources. The flip side is you can try to increase those resources to a level where you can comfortably be able to say that you can do that contact tracing.
What are the challenges of contact tracing? How difficult is it?
Well, if you wander around during the day, these days most people are staying at home, but in a normal day, you run into an awful lot of people that you come into relatively close contact with. And contact tracing depends on you being able to tell a person who you've been in contact to so they can be reached out to and be told about the potential risk. So that's a difficult thing to do, and many institutions, many government agencies are now trying to train a whole cadre of individuals to be able to do these types of things effectively.
Are you concerned that people are going to be able to continue with social distancing measures if they're not getting prescriptions from state and local governments to continue to do that?
Yeah, these public health interventions are a burden, and there is a worry that people will fatigue from trying to follow all of these rules. This is not a time to let up on the gas pedal. We really have to continue to drive this forward to get the case numbers down to a more manageable level where we can, again, safely open up the economy and start to get back to some semblance of normalcy.
In our last 30 seconds here, then, how concerned are you about the risk of spikes in infection as states and counties take steps to reopen?
Yeah, so spikes will happen. If we're prepared with the testing and the contact tracing, those spikes will be very limited. If we don't have those resources in place, then we really do run the risk of restarting an outbreak that is going to take weeks to control and really set us back.
Thanks, as always, Dr. Petkosh. Much appreciated. Dr. Andy Petkosh is professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Get all the latest on the coronavirus pandemic online at Bloomberg.com/coronavirus or on the Bloomberg terminal. Use the function VRUS Go. Futures gaining right now. S&P futures higher by 18 points. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stock futures are rising this morning after a lower close for Wall Street yesterday. Stocks fell about 2% across the board, and for the Dow, it meant a loss of 457 points after the nation's top infectious disease expert warned against reopening communities too soon following shutdowns because of the coronavirus pandemic. The nation's largest airlines have received the bulk of the federal aid aimed at helping their industry weather the travel downturn amid the pandemic. Americans secured the most, getting $5.8 billion, followed by Delta with $5.4 billion, and then United at $5 billion. The program is part of a stimulus bill passed by Congress intended to keep employees at passenger carriers, cargo haulers, and airline contractors on the job. Sony is warning that operating profit could fall 30% or more in the current fiscal year because of the impact of the pandemic. And for the first time since 2016, Sony declined to provide a full forecast for the year. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business